And public hearing, Thursday, November 19th, 2015. Please rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency exits are to my right behind the town clerk and also the door you came in. Roll, please.
Councilman Delango?
Here.
And Councilwoman Hitzelberger will be late. Councilwoman Doyle? Here. Councilman Brody?
Present.
And Supervisor Brody.
Here. Our capital market advisor presentation person is running late due to an issue beyond his control, and he will be here later. The first item on the agenda, other than that, would be continue the public hearing of the water laws. We did have a meeting on Saturday morning and went over parts of the water laws where there were issues. So I'd like to make a motion at this time to discontinue the public hearing, and because we really need to make some changes in the existing law.
I'll second that. Okay, you're going to hold it open, though?
No,
You're not going to hold it open?
you can't hold it open if we're going to make changes. We need to start over.
I mean, do we close the public hearing we have now and then start a new one when the...
Well, you're going to republish then?
re-advertise.
You're gonna
Yes.
republish it. Okay.
So you made the motion?
Yes.
And I'll second that.
Councilman Delango?
Yes?
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Brody?
Yes.
And Supervisor Brody.
Yes. Public comment?
There was one public comment regarding the water laws. Kevin, would you like to, do you want to go first?
So, actually, you just saved one of my comments. I was going to say if you're going to make massive changes to the bill, you're going to need to close this public hearing, start a new one when that new final version is out. So, bravo. Regarding the bill as it sits, well, it's in flux, but as it's written, I know you went through a lot of it, about half of it, or some portion thereof. The problems I still have problem with is public control over things that are not cross-connected with the water district. I think there's a real simple rule. If it's not part of the water district, it's not part of the water district. If it's not cross-connected, it poses no threat. It's not your legal responsibility. There's no issue with public health. It should just be something the town isn't involved in, period. I intend to make that my mission in life. I don't think having to get your well, if all it's doing is watering plants, if it's not cross-connected with the water system tested yearly by the Board of Health, it's just ridiculous. Those rules all apply to potable water, things cross-connected. So there are a lot of places where this bill's muddy. There are some places where the water operator or the committees in this law suggested that they need, before taking action, they need to contact the supervisor or assistant supervisor, or at least one board member. I think that's a really good idea when it comes to shutting off anybody's water. Like I pointed out at the last meeting, you shut off the water and the house freezes, you're destroying your own equipment, the water meter itself. So anyway, besides the personal injury or trauma you might cause to a citizen. So it's definitely something I think should be taken up to your level. And there's one place in the bill where that's mentioned, but there are many other places where I think it would apply, where maybe you guys should consider that. Or at least one of us has to sign off on it, and then maybe come before the whole board. For example, when you want to cut somebody's grass who has gotten to 4 feet, you take a vote as a whole board whether to pay for it. If they don't pay for it, to apply to their tax lien. I think if you're going to make cutting somebody's grass at that level, you should make turning their water off, which can also result in a lack of heat in winter, at least as important as cutting the grass. I think that's a very reasonable position. I think you guys already are sort of changing your mind on the whole when we shut it off thing and the interest rate argument. Just to recap for those who might be watching for the first time, and because I have an audience, it's nice to talk to people. The old interest rates at 10% a month, when compounded, came to 235% a year. When you add in the penalties, and I think I saw a new one today, but the $150 penalty for shutting the water off after 60 days, that interest rate could climb to 1,266%. I don't care what committee or what regulator or some agency says 10% a billing period is okay. I looked up New York usury laws, and usury is much, much lower than 235%. That's not even up for debate. I don't care what I hear from somebody about that. People have a habit of saying, I spoke to somebody at the DEC, I spoke to somebody here, I spoke to somebody there. A bureaucrat, consultant, lawyer at a public agency is not the law. The law is the law. The law is what the words say. New York State's, I mean, I think we live in a highly overregulated state, but they're really good about putting all these laws on their website. It isn't hard to look up. Look up what the law is yourself. You're the decision makers. Do your own research. Don't rely on other people's research because it might be faulty. And finally, there was another point. Well, anyway, the rules about cross-connecting. Let's just keep those two things separate. Oh, and finally, I have such problems with this law. I've been looking into the whole structure of districts, because technically, what my understanding is, this district really isn't run by the town. It's run by a water commission, which happens to also be the town board. There are two roles superimposed on one agency. That when it was created, they decided the water district would be the town board. But I'm still checking into this, and this might be faulty, but I'm going to keep checking into it. I have to do this on my own. I have no legal help. But that a percentage of the water district, after having passed out leaflets and spoken to a lot of people, I think I could get an overwhelming majority to vote that we just take it away from you. We can have our own district, just the way the fire department's a district, and they have their elections, and they have their commissioners. If we're going to be subjected to lawmaking that hurts people in the district, I don't think why we should submit to it. So realize there's a chance that we could just take the district out of the town's hands, just the way the fire districts are. So I don't think we should be subjected to, ridiculously high interest rates, threat of shut-off, and a law that I think the more I read it, every time I read it, I get more confused when I read it. There are parts that disagree with other parts. So please look at this very, very closely. And finally, take out all the stuff on how to be a good water operator. I don't see why that needs to be in a water law. If those are the regulations, he has to follow just the way whoever a building inspector is has to follow building inspector rules from the state. We don't need to incorporate that in our law. It also sets you up for a problem. What happens when the state changes its rules?
I think you're beyond 5 minutes now, Kevin.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Oh, yes. Leo Blackman?
Is that on this subject or for?
On any subject?
On any subject?
Yes. Public comment.
That's trouble. I want to talk about Silo Ridge, since I understand the town board now has to sign off on the proposal with a letter of intent. I'm Leo Blackman, an architect, former chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and a resident of Wassaic at 74 Old Route 22. Silo Ridge is a huge transforming project for our town. While I appreciate the planning board, while I appreciate the time the planning board has spent, their primary concern has always seemed to be the convenience of the developer and not protecting the citizens of Amenia. They have recently ignored the professional experience of their consultants and the deep knowledge of multiple not-for-profit and government groups like the Dutchess Land Conservancy, Harlem Valley Association, DEC, and CAC. The planning board as lead agency early decided the applicant did not have to go through a real SECRA process, denying themselves and the rest of us an opportunity to evaluate the new proposal. I want to focus on the ways in which the planning board has given Silo Ridge a free pass on following the requirements of our zoning code and the intent of our citizen-developed comprehensive plan. The resort development overlays allow some flexibility, but clearly ask that a project appear as close to one of the 5 existing hamlets as possible. The massive structures, indeterminate style, and gated enclosure are nothing like the welcoming, small-scale, specifically rural architecture of Amenia. One could question whether this proposal even is a resort, as that would presume some public access. Silo Ridge will be a private residential enclave, its golf course and facilities closed to all the rest of us. Our zoning code is also very clear about the reasons not to build on steep slopes, yet the proposed estate homes are shown on slopes of 30% and more. They will require major regrading, including a series of 8-foot-high retaining walls and extensive vegetation loss. SECRA would have required real visibility studies, but last year the applicant was allowed to hang white tarps between leafed-out trees to approximate the location of a mere 3 out of the 26 steep slope houses. That day I could see them looming from across much of the valley, both along Old Route 22 and Depot Hill. After those trees have been cleared for roads and foundations, we'll see 2 lines of new houses rather than a wall of green. Yet the planning board signed off on these houses as having no visual impact. Sorry. Silo Ridge promises Amenia economic development with much needed jobs and taxes, but we can have that without forever giving away the natural beauty of our town. Since the planning board has clearly not fulfilled its mission, it falls to the town board to be tougher negotiating on our behalf. It is not too late to ask more from this developer rather than trusting their good intentions and letting them deface Delaverne Hill and our scenic vistas forever. Ask the town assessor to verify their promised tax numbers and that the sum in lieu of payment you negotiated can actually build 21 affordable housing units. Or demand instead that they contribute the $1.3 million to fund a town sewer as originally agreed. Hire a risk expert to make absolutely sure the 2 companies, Discovery Land, are adequately bonded to restore the property if needed. Make them use gray water on the golf course. Have the DEC verify that the draw from their wells won't dry up the Wassaic Creek. Insist that they prove the contaminants found in one well won't poison our aquifer. Force them to stop clearing trees and regrading the residential areas before the project has been approved. Require them to remove the 9 most visible estate homes and a large proportion of the vineyard cottages as proposed by the town's consultants. Do not allow the owners to bypass this huge number of laws enacted for our protection, simply because the planning board failed in their responsibility.
Is there any other public comment?
I had the list, Victoria. Fred? White Ridge?
Oh, there's plenty of people signed up. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I grabbed it.
Hi, I'm Fred Whitridge. I live in far-off Stanfordville, but I'm addressing you as the president of a newly formed association, the Wassaic Watershed and Viewshed Protection Project. I'm also a board member of the DLC, and I'm not talking to you in that capacity, but I think it's important for you to know that I've had a ringside seat as this conservation easement was discussed for the past year. This has been a process. I wanted to just say that the WWVPP, the association I just mentioned, was one of 6 plaintiffs in a motion to intervene in the Amenia Fish and Game Association Article 78 against the town planning board and Silo Ridge. We were unsuccessful in that intervention. We do expect to file a notice of appeal and appeal that. And I've also written on behalf of the association 2 long letters. I apologize to the town board and thank Don and Vicki and Victoria for distributing my letter, which I got in today. I'm sorry it wasn't in sooner. We've also written a very long comment letter to the New York DEC on problems regarding the Speedies permit. And if I may, I just wanted to summarize some of those things and where I see some of the process going at the moment. I think this has been a really masterful process of kicking the can down the road. There's been hundreds of comments. In some of the answers to the comments, the only answer was comment noted. This is the time to actually answer all of the unanswered questions. There were always things that were said in the planning board that this will be addressed by the conservation easement. And I would point out that the Duchess Land Conservancy was excused as the potential holder of the conservation easement after the planning board had completed their deliberations. It is disturbing to me that something as important as the conservation easement apparently is going to be one of the last documents that you see, according to last week's town board meeting. There's always been questions that will be handled by XYZ agency, and this is the time to handle all of those questions. So I think it's not helpful, Pedro, when you get up and you say to this town board that something like well 25 was not...
Excuse me, when you're doing public comment, you're not to address anyone in
I'm
the
sorry.
audience.
Okay, I think it's unfortunate when statements are made that well 25 was not a potable water well, when on April 29th, 2014, LBG, acting on behalf of the developer, said below is a summary of wells drilled to date that are proposed to use to meet the potable water demand. Wells 2, 11, 19, 22, and 25. So it can't be correct for a water consultant to say that a well was specifically drilled as a potable water well, and to have a representative of the developer say it was not a potable water well. I guess I would say that it doesn't matter because these wells go to the same aquifer. They're pulling the same water. Our problems that I've enumerated in letters to the DEC and to the town are not just about water. They're about view shed, many of the points that Leo brought up. They're about the steep slope waivers, which are out of the purview of most land trusts that I've seen. It is about the RDO issues, both the public access and public benefit that Leo brought up. Most specifically, it's about water. The specific issue on water is two. It is both the quantity of water being used in reports that are appended to the letter that I've given to both the town and the DEC, reports from Ecosystem Strategies. Both the quantity of water available from the aquifer and the quality of the water are in question. The specific problem on quality at the moment is a contaminant that was found in well 25, which the developer has gone out of their way and their consultants have gone out of the way to say is probably just a laboratory contaminant. I think it would be more edifying to both the town planning board and to the town board if it was acknowledged that 10,450 gallons of this potential human carcinogen and known endocrine disruptor was dumped in the old Amenia landfill less than 500 feet from the well. It is not a laboratory contaminant. It is something that the New York DEC called the United States EPA to lift 190 drums in an emergency action in 1998, 1999. It is only when something like this is acknowledged that the town board or the town planning board can begin to deal with it. There are ways to clean up this pollutant, DEHP. It has not been cleaned up. In the words of a DEC employee to me, he said, Mr. Whitridge, this was not a DEHP cleanup, this was a PCB cleanup. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a big part of the problem with the water that's facing the Silo Ridge project. So there are a number of things that can be done on water and should be done. I think a supplemental environmental impact statement must be demanded. The waste plant was moved from 44 to Route 22, and no supplemental was done. I think it's a very good idea, as Leo said in his comments, to return to the developer's own idea of using the effluent from the waste plant to water the golf course. That was removed from the plan. That was not the subject of a supplemental environmental impact statement as it should have been. I think it's critical that the town be able to curtail the use of aquifer water for irrigation if there is either a water quantity problem or there continues to be a water quality problem. And so I think there's quite a few issues that the town that the town board needs to address that didn't come up before the planning board, and perhaps could have been addressed were they brought up before the planning board, but they weren't. And it's my understanding that the town board is to make their own determination that the findings and resolutions before you from the planning board are complete and accurate. And if they're not, that you should do your own findings. And so I would urge you to do your own findings on these things that I've enumerated in my letter to you and my letter to the DEC. And I don't believe that this plan is ready for approval at this time. Thanks.
Sharon Kroger,
I'll pass, thanks.
pass. Do you want to?
Hi, I'm Josh Douglas. I did the Article 78 on behalf of the Amenia Fish and Game Club, and I just want to thank Fred Whitridge, because I think that's really a testament to democracy and how, citizens should take their responsibility as being an active, concerned member of the community very seriously, and I think he did, and I think, hopefully the board really listens to what he was saying, because a lot of that stuff is very important and actually bears on future liability of the town, which is something to really take with grave concern. So I just have a letter that I want to read. I think I have a unique perspective. I've done a lot of work and actually spent hundreds of hours looking into this situation. So hopefully you take what I'm saying seriously as well. So anyway, my name is Joshua Douglas. I'm a resident of the town of Amenia and the attorney who challenged the Silo Ridge Modified Project on behalf of the Amenia Fish and Game Club. Tonight I speak to you as a concerned citizen who has spent hundreds of hours poring over the record concerning this project. As a result, I possess unique knowledge concerning the environmental issues and problems which are associated with the proposed development. The main concern I have is how this proposal fits in with both the current as well as the proposed community character of Amenia. The finding statement concerning the original plan noted that the 300-unit hotel was a key feature of that proposal. Once again, it was a key feature of that proposal. The modified plan shrinks that to less than 30 units. The State Environmental Quality Review Act mandates a supplementary environmental impact statement be conducted in order to fully study whether the significant modification is in keeping with the work conducted by the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Comprehensive Plan Committee spent years looking at how the environmental protection and economic development would work together, and they designated that property and that plan as being fit for the RDO. There really hasn't been enough analysis to determine whether this new modified project is going to accomplish the same goals. And this project, once it's approved and once it's developed, there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it. So this is something that, we're not saying that this project shouldn't happen. We're saying that it should really get the kind of study that is necessary for a project of this dimension in a community this small. So I urge the town board to complete an SEIS in order to determine if this plan is consistent with the ideas laid out by the Comprehensive Plan Committee. So I thank you, and hopefully you'll continue to do the work that is needed to make sure that this is right for the outlying community.
That's all I have.
Is there any other public comment? Go ahead, Jean.
I have just two quick things. First, I wanted to bring up Mr. Whitridge. I didn't know who you were, but I'm hoping that they will also take into account what's going on with ARC 38 down on Old Route 22. I know there were several calls to the town this week about the building over a, camper, and then there are, two old campers that were
The building inspector went today.
Right, brought up on the right-of-way. And I think it's important that, as big as something like Silo Ridge might be, and in their view shed, it matters to us in Wassaic what's happening to our view shed right next to our homes. And so I hope that, we've talked about this for a couple of years, and I know that you are trying, but I think it's time for us to address all the issues. And if we're talking about water and what's happening over there, the cows have been off, it's a wetland, there's all these types of things that just aren't regulated over there. And we're just asking that the town board take a closer look at this and keep an eye on what's going down there. Secondly, now that it's winter time, and I did speak with the county, I think we have to address the crossings at the rail trail. I did speak with the county, and I know that years ago we did have the you had to get off your bike and you had to go around. I did speak with the county and they said they agree, but then the bikers are going to be mad. But the reality is this. I live down there. I have to cross that road all the time. The bikers do not adhere to getting off the bikes. You have people who are training for races, for marathons, they get on in Wassaic and they go. And you can stop your car and look, and at some of those areas when the vegetation is so tall, you can't see, and you've got a bike. It's physics. Think about this bike coming. So unless we do something, someone's going to get killed there, and it's not, I mean, it's terrible for the bike riders, but it's also terrible for the people who have had someone hit their car. It's not always about, the car hitting them. The bike, in the instance of my son, the bike ran into the back rear of the car as he was coming to a stop on Dunn Road. And I'm just going to add that in September, when I was coming up 22 to make a right onto Dunn Road, I could see the two bikers because she had a bright pink shirt on. And they were older and they should have known better, and they came sailing down, boom, right across Dunn Road. So if I were to turn in, do I slam my brakes on in the other lane? Do I pull in? I mean, Dunn Road is dangerous if you are coming up and pulling in. And I think that we have to address it, and I think putting the stops back, putting signs and telling people to dismount, it's not saving lives.
No,
So
we need to put the baffles back in place. And I'm sorry to say, if there are bikers here that disagree with that, we care more about you living
right.
than people in you following the rules of the road. When you get to a crosswalk, and these are crosswalks, you are to dismount and walk your bike across. I don't care if you're training for a marathon or for the Tour de France. Get off the bike. And for drivers out there, the main thing that you need to do is slow down when you're going through those areas. That's why I proposed when I went and did this, them to lower the speed limits and have the signage that delineate these crosswalks as what they are, crosswalks. Everybody has to follow the rules here. Drivers follow the rules of the road, and the cyclists, they have to do the same.
And I just want to add, I think Dunn Road is particularly dangerous because it's coming to a stop sign and because you are pulling right in off of 22. And car length-wise, if you see a biker and you slam your brakes on, you are in the other lane when you're stopping. So I'm hoping the baffles will go back. Thanks.
Is there any other public comment? Supervisors report. Attended a meeting on November 17th here. I've been facilitating meetings with the Dutchess County Emergency Response Commissioner Dana Smith, with Wassaic Fire District Commissioners, Amenia Fire District Commissioners, Amenia Fire Company officers, and the Chief of the Amenia Rescue Squad. Commissioner Smith led the discussion about the options open to both fire districts regarding covering ambulance service in both areas, including several, and he also discussed several different models of ambulance districts. He is going to contact the person in Albany who handles municipal certificate of need, also known as emergency certificate of need, to send information to the town of Amenia for future discussion. We will be having follow-up meetings with Commissioner Dana Smith and the committee for each fire district, for each committee that each fire district has formed. This is a complicated issue, and more information has to be sent by Dutchess County Office of Emergency Response before a plan can be put in place. But this is something that's going to be ongoing. It's more and more difficult to find volunteers. to provide ambulance service for Wassaic and during the day in Amenia, and it's something we'll be following up on, and I'll be reporting on as we continue to meet. I also want to mention that the town of Amenia does not post public hearing notices on homes. This notice was posted on a house of an elderly woman who got extremely upset because she was wondering why somebody was tacking this thing on the door. We don't post public hearing notices. This was done by a person who put public hearing, water district law tonight, 7 p.m. town hall meeting room, new rules, 235%, 1,266% late interest rate, $150 on, $150 off, mandatory unannounced access to your property, please come your dollars. While this is inflammatory, it's frightening, especially to elderly people, and I would ask that you do not do this anymore. Senator Sue Serino will be hosting a town hall meeting here on Wednesday, December 2nd, in the auditorium from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We would, happily invite all of you to come to meet Senator Serino and speak to her about any issues or problems that you would like to talk to her about. Town clerk report.
Good evening. I'd like to begin this evening's report by welcoming the newest member of the town clerk's office, Valerie Kulikowski. Will be joining the town clerk's office, as well as joining the town supervisor in the capacity of bank reconciliation clerk. Valerie is a resident here in the town of Amenia. She's recently was with McEnroe Organics for the past 20 years. So as you come into the office and are needing assistance, I do ask everyone to come in and give her that warm welcome hello that we like to do with all of our employees. I am requesting the board to appoint her salary to be $15.45 an hour. So I need that motion.
Effective January.
Effective immediately.
I'll make a motion that we hire Valerie Kulikowski at $15.45 per hour, effective immediately.
For the town clerk's
For the
office.
town clerk, and for bank reconciliation, we're going to pay her the same amount. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
45 an hour, okay.
I'll second that.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Prodi?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
Also this evening, I've circulated to the board the special prosecutor contract. I'm looking for the renewal of Hillary Thomas's contract. She's our special prosecutor who handles all the court matters and meets with the building inspector, code enforcement officer, and handles town code.
And her rates will be staying the same
Her rates
as
are the
last
same
year.
as last year, $145
No
an hour.
increase.
So we
We
just
have to
need,
do that now?
I'm just gonna go down the list and do them so that way you don't
Do 'em
have to
all at once?
return
Okay.
my items. I just need a motion in a second.
You just went on Hillary, right?
Yes.
So yes, I would make a motion that we reinstate or sign the contract for another year for our special prosecutor at the same rate as before. Hillary Thomas.
I'll second it.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Prodi?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
Also this evening, I circulated to the board the Dutchess County SPCA contract. We're looking to renew that for our dog officer. That's where we'll house our dogs.
We had another opportunity to use Pine Plains Vet. Did they
They
submit
did not submit a contract. That doesn't mean that we can't come the new year if I get one.
I would
that
like
we
to
can-
see if we have a competitive bid from Pine Plains. I would rather retrieve my dog from
Oh,
Pine
okay.
Plains than from Hyde Park.
Okay, we can table that.
Okay, the Amenia Free Library parking lease. The supervisor needs authorization to go ahead and sign that.
I just want to make a motion to table the SPCA contract. I need
I'll
a
second
second.
that.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Prodi?
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi.
Yes.
Okay, the Amenia Free Library parking lease.
The parking lease is the same. The only change is that it'll be for 2 years instead of 1.
And the rate is the same.
And the rate is the same.
Do you have that in your packet?
I do.
Do you want to
Want
read
to
it?
read it?
We're beginning with Resolution 42 this evening.
Approval of parking lot lease between the Amenia Free Library Association as landlord and the Town of Amenia as tenant for the term January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2017. At a regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Amenia held at the Amenia Town Hall on the 19th day of November 2015 at 7 p.m., Town Supervisor Victoria Perotti called the meeting to order. Can I make that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by. Whereas pursuant to a lease agreement, the Town of Amenia has previously leased a parcel of property bearing tax ID number 017167-13-167494 and owned by the Amenia Free Library Association located on Route 343 adjacent to the library in the Town of Amenia for use as a municipal parking facility. Whereas the current lease agreement, which commenced on January 1st, 2014, will expire on December 31st, 2015. Whereas the town has continued to use the property as a municipal parking facility at the present time in accordance with the terms and conditions of the lease agreement. Whereas the town board of the Town of Amenia and the library are desirous of continuing to lease the lease of the property for an additional 2-year term which shall commence on January 1st, 2016 and shall expire on December 31st, 2017. Whereas the execution of a lease agreement for the continued rental of the property is a Type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and therefore does not require further action under seeker. Now therefore be it resolved that on a motion of Supervisor Perotti, seconded by Councilwoman Doyle, the town board hereby approves the lease agreement between the town and the library in the form attached hereto for the term January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2017. And be it further resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the town supervisor, Victoria Perotti, to execute the lease agreement in the form annexed hereto, to take all actions necessary to procure the insurance cover required by said lease agreement and to take such other and further administrative and ministerial actions that may be necessary to effectuate and comply with the terms of said lease agreement. The foregoing resolution was voted upon with all councilwomen, councilmen voting as follows.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
And Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Also this evening, I've presented to the board, half of the town clerk's office has reviewed the vouchers. I'm certifying that the vouchers on the abstract that is dated November 18th, 2015, consisting of the 9 pages, was audited and shown. The amounts are as follows. The general fund, $79,241.35. Highway fund in the amount of $18,945.79. Amenia Lighting in the amount of $1,405.17. Wassaic Lighting in the amount of $557.50. Amenia Water in the amount of $13,108.37. And the landfill in the amount of $28,501.98 for our total bills this month, totaling $141,760.16.
You need a motion to approve those expenditures. I so move that we approve those claims.
I'll second it.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Also, the town clerk's office has advertised for snow removal bids. 2 bids were received for said snow removal. Should've brought a cover. Okay, and the first bid is from Majestic Landscaping for the town hall portion only, $12,000. The optional pricing, $24,000.
For Wasaik and Amenia.
That one was easy. Okay, so our second bid that we're opening this evening is from Al Smith and Sons Excavating for the Amenia Town Hall. The amount is $4,100. The optional pricing, $10,100. In his packet, he's also included the non-conclusive bidding certificate. If you want to pass those down to the supervisor, please.
So is the 24,000 from Majestic?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's just out of the ballpark. And the 10,000 from Al Smith was all of the sidewalks in both hamlets, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I move to accept the low bid from Al Smith for $4,000 for the town hall and $10,100 for Amenia NY sidewalks.
It's 4,100. for the town hall, not for the
4,100 for town hall.
Town hall.
Oh, 14,000.
Total.
You're right. 14,200 total.
Aren't we still deciding if we're doing the sidewalks or not yet?
I think to discuss it, we have to get a second, right?
What's that?
We need a second in order to discuss it?
No?
I'll
No.
second it.
Well, it's been second, then we can do discussion.
Are
We can discuss now.
We could discuss it. I mean, are we taking on the responsibilities of having the sidewalks cleaned again?
Looks like we are. Can't just do it for 10 years and then just say, oh, we're not going to do it. My opinion on this whole thing is I think it should be something that we do anyways, and it should be part of, just like the Village of Millerton does it. And there are other municipalities that do it. You know, whether whoever's in charge of the individuals that are doing it, I would prefer them to be town employees doing it. That's just my take on the whole thing.
But that doesn't
But, you know,
have it
if
apply to what we have in front of us. Actually, the bid said should include sand and pet-friendly ice melting material that won't damage concrete during severe icing conditions and minimum snow depth 2 inches. That does not absolve property owners from keeping their sidewalks clear. I mean, during storms, we'll, you know, if everyone wants to vote on this and do it, you know, our contractors do the best they can, but there's still a responsibility for property owners to keep their sidewalks clear.
Has Byron Barnes weighed in on, from his point of view as our insurance carrier?
No.
I just wondered if there was some way of adding the town of Amenia as an additional insured on every single homeowners, but that would be incredibly onerous to do that. It does expose the town of Amenia to liability for accidents that occur on the sidewalks. So I'm still on the fence about whether or not the benefits exceed the potential liability to the town for those, that responsibility. If you go to clearing the sidewalks of snow and somebody slips and falls, then the town will be named as well as anybody else, as I understand. But the property owner is the first one to, would the property owner still be the first one to be the one named in a lawsuit?
Yes.
Or does it even matter? It doesn't even matter.
No, they're just going to name anyone that they feel has some responsibility. When you have the contract to have snow or snow and ice removed, you've kind of undertaken that responsibility, and then you will be named.
I personally would like to talk to Byron Barnes, if that makes any sense to anybody else, about his take on our liability for clearing or not clearing. I assume he'll agree with our lawyer that our exposure is increased.
Yeah, I mean, it's evident what happened last year. You know, my whole feeling is $10,100 to clean the sidewalks. I can't see how the sidewalks are going to be cleaned properly for that amount. Just doesn't make sense to me.
How are they going to do all that mileage?
How are they going to do all that? 2 inches of ice, 2 inches of snow removal, ice, pet-friendly ice. I don't know. Now, what happens if we award this contract and, it's not being done to the standards that we need it to be done with? And, what happens if the contractor backs out? I just, there's a lot of discussion on this matter. I mean, I think we have Stan the highway department was willing to do the horseshoe up around the town hall and everything that we needed.
But he can't get here when the employees are here.
No,
I mean, this is a business and it needs to be open. And employees are coming here 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it needs to be cleared. And at that time, Stan is usually in a truck plowing Tower Hill or Butts Hollow or somewhere so that the buses can get in.
Well,
I mean, this is a business and we need to be open for business.
And I understand that, but if the employee could drive from their house to get to the town hall, they could drive up the driveway if it's not plowed yet. So, I mean, the whole time span of it being on there is,
So you want the employees to drive through the snow?
they're driving through the snow to get here.
The roads are plowed.
Okay. I just don't agree with
As well as the lower parking lot, which gets plowed for the school buses.
We're going to make a decision, or what are we doing?
I think we should vote it up or down, and we can separate that out if we want. If this vote fails, we can go to accepting just the $4,000 for the town
Yes.
hall.
Yes.
I guess we're ready to- Is everybody ready to vote, or?
You seconded it, so I'm ready to go.
Okay, so just so the motion is to accept the low bid of both the town hall and the sidewalks.
Right,
Okay.
for a total of $14,200.
Councilman Delango.
No.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger.
No.
Councilman Perotti.
Yes?
Councilwoman Doyle.
I'm going to vote no.
Supervisor Perotti.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bid for the Amenia Town Hall
For $4,100.
for $4,100.
From Al Smith. I'll second that.
Councilman Delango.
No.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger.
No.
Councilwoman Doyle.
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Are you,
Are you going to do any actions on the second half? You're going to reject, it's usually award, reject, or do you want to table the second half to your next meeting?
For voting on the
Just
rest of the
so
town?
it's clear, so when I have to make that phone call in the morning, so he knows what he's, you know, if they ask, what are we doing for the second half? And I have to notify the other,
if you want to table it, you need to make a motion. If that's what you want to do.
the second half of it, the sidewalk part.
Well, it failed at this point. There's a possibility of it having it reintroduced December 3rd, right?
Yes, if you're going to bring
but-
it up and you're going to use those bids, that's what I need to know. Or am I
I
going to
see.
re-advertise for that part? I need to know what the board's pleasure is, so I know how to.
Or do you
issue
want to
these
table that
contracts.
part of it until December 3rd?
There's three possibilities. You know, we voted on two of them already. I mean, either table the third one, or we vote on the third one also.
Third one.
You don't,
Need to make a decision on the second part of the bid. We either reject it or table it.
I move that we table it until the December 3rd meeting,
So that we can do further research?
so we can do further research and, so we can do further research on the matter.
I'll second that.
Councilman Delango?
No.
Councilwoman Hetzelberger?
No?
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes?
Councilman Perotti?
Yes?
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be on the next agenda. And my last item is this afternoon I've received the 2016 budget from Supervisor Perotti. And it's been part of the circulation and it's in your packets and I know she sent it out.
It's the same as the preliminary budget. The only thing I had to add to it is because there were salary changes, I had to change the Social Security amounts to accommodate those changes. Other than that, it's the same budget. The budget is $25,647 under the tax cap. Under general, the change from the current year is a negative -0.62. Amenia Library is a negative -0.20. Highway is 1.61%. Amenia Water is a negative 2.69. Amenia Lighting is a negative 0.22. Mosaic Lighting is 0.13. The increase for Amenia Fire is 13.65%, and the increase for Wassaic Fire is 170.93%. Now, in figuring the tax cap, the Amenia Library has their own tax cap, Amenia Fire District has its own tax cap, and Wassaic Fire District has its own tax cap. So the tax cap for the town of Amenia, what's included is the general, the highway, Amenia Water, Amenia Lighting, and Wassaic Lighting.
I just want to say that, as a matter of public record, that the Wassaic Fire Commissioners, what they're doing is pretty irresponsible for the taxpayers of the town of Wassaic. They had ample time to discuss their situation with the rest of the town of Amenia, and I think at this time it was a foolish decision, and I really wish I had control over that, so we could have done something sooner rather than later.
I would like to have seen something in the budget for repairing or doing something about the town highway garage. And I'd be interested in hearing why the idea of a serious roof patch wasn't recommended. I understand, Stan, you didn't think that that was the right thing, that you did some patching on your own. How long is that roof going to stay watertight?
When are we going to get a new highway garage?
Well, even if we got a new highway garage, that is a building that I think would continue to be used for at least cold storage and a watertight roof, even if it cost us $30,000. It's land that we own. If we could get a 5-year warranty or something like that. I understand Mike DeLango has such a cinder block building which had experienced problems with
There's
the building.
$30,000 under engineering that can be used for that, so it isn't like there is no money in there.
And I kind of think it's foolish. We've talked about tearing it down. Now we're talking about putting $40,000 on the roof.
We've talked about adding on to it. We haven't found any property here since I've been on the town board.
I don't think we ever will have.
Right, so
We'll
why
never
don't we
find any.
do something to keep the water from
Put the
coming in?
40,000. Go ahead, put 40,000 on it. The whole building's ready to fall down. It's not just the roof. The electrical, the heating, everything's bad in that place. And everybody knows it too. You've been there before. There's no surprises.
So you don't think $30,000 is worth investing? You know, to me, a roof,
30, I thought it was 40.
I thought it
Even
was
30,
30, 20,
30 is too much.
$35,000, something like that. You got a couple of ideas, right, from
I did.
contracted?
I got bids.
We went up and patched it. We had a couple leaks. We went and patched it here a couple weeks ago, and we stopped 2 or 3 leaks, but we still had one more that they went back up on the roof here a couple days ago, and they're trying to stop that one from leaking. But it's going to leak again. The whole roof is weak. It's rotten.
So replacing that roof with something similar to what Mike DeLango's will not solve this problem for at least
I
10
don't know
years.
if the building's going to take a new roof. You've got cracks in the block from the ground all the way up to the roof. You can count, we went around the last couple weeks, I counted 25 cracks around that building.
So the
And
foundation
some are
doesn't-
major.
Yeah, so the
Major
foundation
cracks.
isn't going to be, okay. I appreciate that because, you know, we have to do something.
You got to build something new. And that thing there's not worth saving. I don't think you can save it. The blocks on the bottom are all rotten and they're all decayed.
Okay, so $30,000 will be helpful towards some environmental engineering tests if we find a property that would be appropriate, that could get us started on a,
Well, we've been paying, I don't know, I think the last time was $1,100 to have the roof company come out and patch it. I'd rather spend another $1,100 than $30,000 or $40,000. It definitely needs a new roof, but we need a new building. When some of them cracks, you can put your fingers right in.
in the building walls or the,
In the concrete block, yeah. We put the foam insulation, we spray that in them. Even up on top. When you look up at the roof, we went through, I think, 6 cans of foam, because you can see the daylight.
So is it safe to say that this is a project that should be numero uno on the town board's list for this coming year?
Well, it is.
This
I mean,
coming year.
we're looking at
It's
land.
been there for the last 20 years.
It's
Yeah, I
about
know.
20 years.
So it's time to move
And
forward
there's-
here.
Well, I think they have. I mean, over the years, I went back and researched the whole thing. There was land bought, and then they decided not to use it. And so we need to look at other
Alternative properties and everything else. you know.
Well, we've been doing that,
I know.
but we need to, we need to
Put a couple ideas
continue.
myself out there.
Yeah, just say, I don't want to put any money in that building. It's too far gone.
The speaker's here, I think.
So I can note that the adoption of the budget is later in the agenda, so we can, unless you want to.
Well, we can vote on it now.
Okay.
I move that we adopt the 2016 budget as presented.
I'll second it.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti.
Yes.
And that concludes the town clerk's report.
Did you have anything else, Stan? You're up next.
I'll touch on the rail trail. Back in July, we went through, opened up all the intersections. That's when we had the accident on Sheffield. It was cleared before the accident. About a month ago, I believe I gave you my report. We drove the rail trail and we found quite a few baffles missing, a lot of signs missing. I sent the town board a copy and I sent a copy to the county. But nothing's been done yet. And about the sidewalks.
How do we follow up with that? I mean,
You
who's
call the county
responsible?
and the county.
So who will call the county?
I will.
To make sure that they understood the report and put it on
Well,
their
it was pretty
agenda?
clear. I mean,
Right.
the baffles, and, I mean, he explained it isn't something they haven't heard before. I mean, I sent them the report that Councilman Perotti did. I've talked to the head of planning. I think what we need from them now is whatever plan they're going to put in place and what improvements I've seen. I believe I've seen some dismount signs put up there, but I think we need to get an actual report from the planning that, number one, they've received their list of complaints and issues and the safety issues here, and number two, what is your plan? So, I mean, I'll call them tomorrow and tell them that's what we need.
Sounds good.
Hopefully they'll remember this side of the county.
And tell them we meet again on December 3rd. And we need an answer by then.
And I'll touch on the sidewalks. I have 5 employees. I plow snow myself. I go Tower Hill and Deep Hollow. I talked to Mike about plowing out here, the horseshoe. Yeah, we'll do it, but I don't know when. I mean, we got to get the roads done first. And you can't expect my guys to plow snow for 30 hours or more and then go do sidewalks. I mean, we're pushing them quite a bit now. A lot of
No,
these
but we
storms
just
are
agreed
slow
to-
storms. You know,
We just
that's-
agreed to do this.
Go
The
ahead.
town hall we'll have done by Al Smith's crew, right? But you're saying that the rest of the sidewalks, you've got your hands full with the roads?
Yeah, I don't know any highway department does sidewalks. The village of Millerton does, the village of Millbrook does, but
No
not the
towns.
highway departments. Well, I know Dover does them when they get a chance, which might be 2-3 weeks. When we do our own repairs and stuff.
But you do help with the state getting loads of snow when we have inordinate snowfalls.
Well, we don't get much help from the state either. We basically
You
do
do
it
it,
all.
you do it.
They're always
That's-
too busy.
That is a big problem with so much snow in the center of town.
That's about all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you for getting the lights switched out in Wassaic.
Yeah, we did that today.
Thank you. Looks good.
Grant report?
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Town Board. Since I was last here, we completed the Community Development Block Grant and got that in for the Wassaic sidewalks. Pete Sotero gave us a cost estimate. I think it's a strong proposal and does qualify, so I'll keep our fingers crossed. Also, I'm working on finalizing a new kitchen grant to the M&T Bank Foundation, getting sponsorship from the Amenia Historical Society because we need a nonprofit pass-through organization, and they've agreed to do it. They're excited about it. The final design report comments have been submitted to the Department of Transportation for the Wassaic Trail to the Train project, so that's in place. We still have a pending application. The grant awards have not been announced on the consolidated funding application yet. I've been looking at the governor's website, so that still is a possibility that we could get those additional construction funds. There is one more opportunity for a Greenway grant this year. There's also another grant that I would like to pursue that begins in December from Hudson Valley Fresh through the Community Foundation of Dutchess County, which may be another source for us for the kitchen project. So those were, and I'm also looking at possibilities from the Department of Agriculture and Markets. That's it. And you have the updated grant spreadsheet here. We still have a lot of grants on the books that need to be acted on, which I think they will be this coming year. The TEP grant, the Dormitory Authority grant, the first CDBG that we got for the Trail to the Train. All of those, assuming that you do, be very interesting to hear this next presentation on the financing, because I think that is key to a lot of these grants, to have the financing in place so that you can have the ability to pay for these expenses, and then, I'll go to work on getting reimbursed for the grants that we do have now.
I did apply to Arts Mid-Hudson for $1,500 for the free theater arts program.
Oh, great.
I emailed you back, but you probably didn't see it, but.
You emailed it? Oh, so I can add that to the $1,500.
Yeah, I just applied for it yesterday, I guess.
In the last
It's all a
cycle.
blur, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So we'll see.
And the Berkshire Taconic
And
grant.
that's in April. And OCF has to do December 9th. So 3 grants that I'll try for the-
Did you want me, or we're going to work on the reimbursement again, like we?
Yes, the
before
state
end of the
grant.
year?
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Are there any other committee reports?
I was asked to report from the CAC, and they had written a letter to the town board, which I think you all got an email from them about the Bolfamonte proposal. We met last night. After that, I did the grant. It was a busy day last night.
I put it in everyone's packets.
So I'm going to read it out loud, if that's okay. From Dave Reagan, Amenia CAC Chair, 23 Benson Road, November 19, 2015. Dear Supervisor Perotti and Town Board members, on November 18th, the CAC met and extensively discussed the proposed Bolfamonte composting site and the zoning language change needed to facilitate this project in the OC zone. We came to the conclusion that this project, as proposed at this location, should not be considered by the town board. We feel that, as it is the town board's right to do so, the board should simply say no and terminate the process now. The project, which will eventually process 100,000 cubic yards of solid waste, has the potential of contaminating the groundwater in the area. The 2 aquifers beneath the site are highly permeable. There is a real potential that contaminated groundwater from the site will migrate off-site and significantly affect other water users. Tally Ho Estates, whose well is in the very permeable sand and gravel aquifer, is only 3,500 feet south and downgrade from the proposed project. Besides Tally Ho, there are hundreds of wells in the southern part of Amenia, as well as in the town of Dover Plains, that get their water from the same aquifers. According to the best available information, the site partially overlies the Stockbridge Formation, which is classified as a valley bottom aquifer. This aquifer has special status in the Amenia Aquifer Overlay District. It's extremely important to keep this water supply pristine. It is the CAC's strongly held opinion that the town board should just stop the rezoning process now. Supporting evidence is presented here in the rest of this document. It will be helpful to have read the groundwater in Amenia section from the Amenia Water Natural Resource Inventory in understanding and interpreting the following material. I sent you a short time ago. Sincerely, Dave Reagan, CAC Chair. So that was the bulk of our meeting. We did extensive slides. There were 23 maps overlaying the geological formations, and as best we can see, the Bolfamonte proposal overlies a half to 2/3 of the aquifer beneath it. So the recommendation unanimously from the CAC from the meeting last night was to go ahead and reject it outright. That's that. And then we did get a letter from the HVA about the Silo Ridge finding statements, and that's dated November 19th as well. Dear Mr. Reagan, and they asked me to pass this along as well. The Housatonic Valley Association, HVA, founded in 1941, is one of the oldest nonprofit watershed conservation organizations in the nation and is dedicated to preserving and protecting the natural character and environmental health of the Housatonic River and its 1,948-mile watershed, which includes the 10-mile river system in eastern New York. Our work in surface and groundwater protection issues is extensive. The purpose of this letter is to provide the Amenia Conservation Advisory Committee with HVA's assessment of the importance of water quality issues raised by the finding statement for the Silo Ridge project. Our primary concerns relate to the management of stormwater, grounds maintenance, and the withdrawal of groundwater for irrigation, especially during times of drought. Issues. Hydrogeologic studies indicate that the complex limestone bedrock and unconsolidated aquifers under the project area and adjacent lands can facilitate infiltration and transport of contaminants throughout the groundwater system. A 1999 study of the Harlem Valley Aquifer by the Chazen Companies, the Harlem Valley Watershed Investigation, page 20, section 3.4.1, Contaminant Pathways states, in most areas, the carbonate limestone formation lies close to the grade with only minimal soil cover. In these areas, contaminants may readily enter the carbonate water aquifer system and migrate in the direction of natural groundwater flow toward any domestic or community wells. The CAC's recent groundwater study of Amenia concurs with this, noting that unconsolidated sand and gravel aquifers beneath the down gradient community of Wasaik provide drinking water to many homes with shallow wells. While the hydrogeologic connections between these aquifers and the project site are not well known, their position in the landscape in relation to the project site warrants careful observation for any potential contamination of drinking water supplies. The mobility of groundwater and associated contaminants through the underlying geology of the area also has implications for surface water supply. The proposed irrigation withdrawals may also result in decreased low flow levels in downstream surface waters, particularly during droughts, with corresponding water quality and aquatic habitat impacts. From the finding statement, page 41, although it is not expected that the proposed project would terminate flow in the Amenia Cascade Brook, periodic reductions in stream flow may affect water temperature and stream biota and serve to further concentrate the pollutant load entering the stream from the site. Decreases in base flow to Amenia Cascade Brook may be expected during times of drought. Another more recent hydrogeologic study, July 2015, of the site by Ecosystem Strategies, Inc., questioned the applicant's data for available water supply from their proposed irrigation wells in aggregate, saying that the wells would in effect rob water from each other and diminish the total yield. Their report indicates that the recharge rate is not high enough to keep up with the proposed demand. The pumping, and this is in quotes, the pumping test and analysis do not confirm that the pumping rates are sustainable for the potable and irrigation water demands of the proposed development due to significant recharge circulation, poor recovery, and interference among wells during and after these tests. And that's dated June 5th, 2015 by Ecosystem Strategies, Inc., technical review of the LBG pumping test report. The implication here is that demand on the aquifer could be more intense than predicted by the applicant, resulting in more significant impacts to downstream surface water quantity and quality. Given the high degree of uncertainty about the potential water resource impacts of the proposed project, we recommend the following. 1, the CAC should advise the town board to require the applicant to provide an independent entity to establish a water quality/quantity monitoring program as a condition of their approval of the final finding statement. A, this program should develop a baseline water quality/quantity profile of ground and surface water supplies that could potentially be impacted by the proposed project. B, this program should set specific performance standards for concentrations of pollutants of concern in groundwater down gradient of the project. C, this program should set specific performance standards for stream flow and pollutant concentrations in Amenia/Cascade Brook. These parameters should be assessed on a regular basis upstream and downstream of the project site. In summary, a water quality/quantity monitoring program of this nature would provide the town with the information it needs to determine when water quality and flow are impacted beyond acceptable levels and would provide a basis for requiring steps to mitigate those impacts to ensure that drinking water supplies for residences and businesses are protected. Submitted by Michael Jastremski, Jastrzemski, CFM, Water Protection Director, Housatonic Valley Association. Thank you.
Okay, one of the resolutions we have is for Bufamonte, Seeker, Town of Amenia as lead agency. What does the board want to have the Bufamonte project go through Seeker, which would take a good hard look at all the pitfalls or aquifer or any issues,
Environmental issues.
everything?
In my opinion, I'm very torn on this issue because I believe that jobs are a very important thing, and they did say that it would create 8 jobs once it was in full build-out. In reviewing all the different aquifer maps, and I understand the applicant would have to, at his own expense, challenge what maps we were able to get our hands on, and we went historically back, or I don't say we, Dave Reagan is a geologist. He went back historically, looked at it very carefully, and it seems to us that it is the proposed project lies primarily over a very sensitive part of the aquifer. And just as we said no to Roxbury sand and gravel, which is in the priority valley bottom aquifer, I think this OC district had potential, but unfortunately, I don't think they can fit it on there. And the other thing that I don't understand is that it sounds like we would have, that it would have had to, if solid waste would have had to have been in a covered building, right? In our law, it states that, but the Bufamonte proposal isn't. That would be crazy. To the size of and extent of the project that's proposed, I don't think that's really feasible. So I have strong reservations now and feel that perhaps the CAC's recommendation ought to be followed on and just say, this is not in the right place for us.
I do understand what you're saying, but, basically, if we're going to accept the seeker, it doesn't mean we're approving the project.
No.
We're gathering information, and it says in Mr. Regan's letter, according to the best available information.
Right.
It's going to be up to the applicant to get all this information, updated information and everything at a cost to him. So my whole theory about the secret is it's an information gathering tool.
That's right.
That we need to make a decision on. I can't see shutting something down if we don't have the information. I'm for going through with the secret.
I don't have a problem going through the process. They should be able to, we may find out something, we might find out something new that might make it an acceptable project for the area. And I look at this and I hear all this talk about aquifers and everything. What if they wanted to put 300 cows there, milk 300 cows? They'd be perfectly able to do it. There's not a thing anybody could do about it. They decide to have a lagoon or a storage store or something like that. I'm just going to tell you something, this is part of agriculture. This is an agricultural region, and I think we need to give these people the benefit of the doubt and let them go through the process. Let them prove their argument. That's what the seeker process is all about.
Yeah, it's going to be on them.
A lot of people already know my feelings about Amenia's zoning code.
But how do you...
Overkill code.
Well, how do you feel, though? Do you want to allow them to go through the seeker process and see what information, we glean from that whole process?
Basically the resolution...
we're not making a decision to
The resolution
approve it.
that you have is for the town of Amenia to become lead agency in the secret process.
Right.
That's our resolution. So now when we take the lead agency status, there's going to be a lot of work for us. We have our consultants, we have our lawyers.
Well, do you want to allow them to go through the seeker process or not? We need to make a decision here.
I move that we become, the town of Amenia becomes the lead agency and
Well, do you want me to go ahead and read the resolution,
go right ahead.
and then we'll do a vote,
Yes.
since we already have the resolution in place?
Seems it would give us time to review further the CAC submission, which we just got today, so.
43.
Resolution of intent to act as a seeker lead agency for the Buffamonte Yard Waste Composting Facility. Whereas Anthony Buffamonte proposes to develop a commercial yard waste composting facility at 3501 State Route 22 in the town of Amenia, Dutchess County, New York. Whereas the project would be located in the town's office commercial industrial mixed-use zoning district. And whereas Section 121-50 of the town of Amenia zoning law states solid waste management facilities as defined in Environmental Conservation Law 27-0701 and 6 NYCRR 360-1.2B 158, with the sole exception of municipally owned land, owned and operated facilities, shall be prohibited in the town of Amenia. A yard waste composting facility is considered to be a solid waste management facility under the ECL, and therefore prohibited in the town under the zoning code. Whereas on or about September 24, 2015, the applicant submitted a petition to the Town of Amenia Town Board requesting text amendments to the zoning code to allow its commercial yard waste composting facility to be developed as a permitted use only in the OC zoning district. Whereas the project and petition are subject to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and are classified as a Type 1 action because they require the adoption of changes in the allowable uses within a zoning district affecting more than 25 acres. Whereas seeker requires the potential environmental impacts of both the petition and the project to be evaluated together at the earliest possible time. Whereas the town board desires to act as the lead agency responsible for conducting the environmental review of the project under seeker. Whereas the applicant has prepared Part 1 of the full environmental assessment form for the project, whereas the town board is required to conduct a coordinated seeker review of this Type 1 action with all involved interested agencies to designate the lead agency, whereas seeker requires the town board to circulate the FEAF and the petition to all involved agencies and notify them that a seeker lead agency must be agreed upon within 30 calendar days from the distribution of these documents. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby declare its intent to act as a lead agency for the project under seeker. Be it further resolved, the town board hereby directs the town clerk to circulate the following documents to all involved agencies. 1, this resolution. 2, the attached notice of the board's intent to act as seeker lead agency. 3, the FEAF, and 4, the petition. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Supervisor Prody?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
No.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Councilman Prody?
Yes.
Okay, we also have a resolution for the Silo Ridge seeker findings, for adopting the seeker finding statement for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Resolution.
44.
Resolution adopting seeker finding statement for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas Silo Ridge Ventures, A LLC, is the owner of 670 plus or minus acres of real property located in the town of Amenia and identified as parcel number 7066-00732-810, 7066-00-860-725, 7066-00 742300 and 706600, 670717, 706700, 709177, and 706600, 628131 in the Town of Amenia tax map. And whereas Silo intends to develop the Silo property as a mixed-use resort community containing, among other things, condominiums, single-family homes, townhomes, an 18-hole golf course, a clubhouse/lodge, a winery-themed restaurant, water and wastewater plants, a public open space called Artisan Park Overlook, other recreational and open space amenities and related improvements, which resort community is to be known as the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas the Harlem Valley Landfill Corp. is the owner of real property located adjacent to the Silo property and identified as parcel number 7066-00-870350 on the Town of Amenia tax map, and HVLC and Silo intend to enter into an easement agreement granting Silo a permanent easement over a portion of the HVLC property to construct and operate a golf maintenance building, wastewater treatment plant, access road, and other improvements related to the project. Whereas in 2013, Silo applied to the Town of Amenia Planning Board for, among other things, one, an amended special permit/master development plan approval for the project pursuant to Section 121-18C3 of the Town of Amenia zoning code. 2, special permit approvals for the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and wastewater plant to be located on a portion of the HVLC property pursuant to Section 121-10B of the zoning code. 3, site plan approval for the first phase of the project, including the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and wastewater treatment plant to be located on the HVLC property. 4, preliminary subdivision approval and lot line adjustment to incorporate a portion of the HVLC property into the project site pursuant to Chapter 105 of the Town Code. 5, special permit approval for storage at the golf maintenance facility of more than 500 pounds of fertilizer, pesticides/herbicides pursuant to Section 12115E1. Page 2, resolution, wait a minute, of the zoning code, and 6, certain waivers and supplementary approvals under the zoning code and subdivision code. Whereas on March 25, 2014, the Planning Board circulated a full environmental assessment form, EAF, for the project to all involved agencies, including the Town Board of the Town of Amenia. On May 15, 2014, the Planning Board designated itself as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act for review of the applications for the project. Whereas as part of the application, Silo submitted an addendum to the EAF containing numerous detailed and thorough plans, reports, studies, and other documents evaluating the project's potential impacts on the following environmental topics, among other: soils and geology, water resources, cultural resources, transportation, land use and zoning, the HVLC property, water and wastewater, stormwater, aesthetic resources, fiscal resources, fire safety, local and regional plan consistency, floodplains, vegetation and wildlife, collectively, the supplemental secret materials. Whereas on August 21st, 2014, the Planning Board determined the application complete for purposes of public review, and on September 4, 2014, September 18, 2014, and May 5, 2015, the Planning Board held duly noticed public hearings on the applications and supplemental secret materials. Whereas the Planning Board, with the assistance of its ecological, planning, engineering, visual, and legal consultants, thoroughly reviewed the EAF, the applications, and revised supplemental secret materials to identify the relevant areas of environmental concern, and thoroughly analyzed the identified areas of environmental concerns to determine if the project may have a significant adverse impact on the environment. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board adopted Resolution Number 8 of 2015 entitled Resolution Adopting an Amended and Restated Finding Statement under Seeker for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas as required by 6 NYCRR, Section 617.11, the amended seeker findings: 1, consider the relevant environmental impacts, facts, and conclusions disclosed in the FEIS. the applications, and the revised supplemental seeker materials. 2, weigh and balance the relevant environmental impacts with social, economic, and other considerations. 3, provide rationale for the planning board's decision. 4, certify that the requirements of seeker have been met. And 5, certify that, consistent with social, economic, and other essential considerations from among the reasonable alternatives available, the project is one that avoids or minimizes adverse environmental impacts to the maximum extent practicable. And 6, certify that the adverse environmental impacts will be avoided or minimized to the maximum extent practicable by incorporating the mitigation measures set forth in the amended finding statement. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board also adopted the following resolutions, among others, in connection with the project. 1, Resolution number 9 of 2015, titled Resolution Approving the Amended Special Permit and Amended Master Development Plan for the Silo Ridge Field Club. 2, Resolution number 11, titled Resolution Approving Lot Line Adjustment and Preliminary Subdivision Plat for the Silo Ridge Field Club. And 3, Resolution number 12 of 2015, titled Resolution Approving Site Plans for Phase 1 of the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Amenia is an involved agency for the project under seeker because the board has jurisdiction by law to approve certain aspects of the project, including, among other things, the formation of transportation corporations, execution of a public access easement for Artisan Park Overlook, and the approval of various project bonds and financial guarantees. Whereas 6 NY-CRR Section 617.11C provides that no involved agency may make a decision to approve an action until the agency has made a written finding statement under seeker. Whereas the Town Board has carefully reviewed the amended seeker findings prepared by the Planning Board and concurs with those findings and confirms that such findings fully address the environmental concerns of the Town Board for the project. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board hereby adopts the attached amended seeker finding statement prepared by the Planning Board for the project. Such findings constitute the Town Board seeker findings for the project pursuant to 6 NY-CRR Section 617.11. And be it further resolved that pursuant to 6 NY-CRR Section 611.12, the Town Board shall cause this resolution and the attached amendment seeker findings to be sent to 1, the Planning Board as the lead agency, 2, all involved agencies, and 3, any person who has requested a copy, and 4, the applicant. Be it further resolved that 1 or more copies of the amended seeker findings shall be immediately filed in the town clerk's office and posted on the town's website and shall be made available for public inspection during more normal business hours. And I need a motion.
Motion to accept the finding statements.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think we should wait to look at all of the submissions that we received. We had a significant packet of information that we received this morning at 8 o'clock. I haven't had a chance to read it all thoroughly, but I have my own reservations in some of the basic information that I think we should go over very carefully together as a board and make sure that all of the concerns and questions are addressed that we might have. One simple thing, for example, is just that, on page 3 of the finding statement, it references a document about a memorandum from Del Bello, Danellen, Garten, Wise, and Weidenker, LLP. It states, about 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, the last sentence, that it was last revised on July 7, 2015. This document was last revised on July 29, 2015. So they're small typos that I think might be grounds for an Article 78 that we should go through carefully and make sure that we don't cause unnecessary delay of the project due to an Article 78 that could tie this project up for years and defeat all of our goals, which is to actually have the project completed and done correctly, and that the town board stands solidly and competently in their own statement of that the findings perhaps as corrected or amended, and I don't know if that's possible to do that, to amend it or to even add conditions upon the approval that would say perhaps if stream water quality testing is been mandated by a significant portion of our residents who have concern about their water quality and quantity being affected by the project, that we potentially look at it with that condition imposed. I understand Cricket Valley Power Company had a similar large project that residents voiced a lot of concern, and they very happily agreed to a small concession, which was to have their water quality tested. And I would suggest above and below the project, so if water is adversely affected, we know that it was, in fact, a result of Silo Ridge and not something that's happening even further up. So that's my position. My personal feeling, having read it, is that I'm concerned that the steep slopes variance was granted without giving sufficient, and maybe I'm missing something, because I haven't looked at all of the documents that were referenced in this. I struggled to get through with 175 pages, let alone look at all of the documents that were associated with it. So my problem with the steep slopes waiver was that the applicant didn't seem to ever establish, at least to my sensibilities, the reason why they needed to build on those steep slopes. And I did attend public hearings, and I tried to follow as much as I could, but oftentimes I can't be in two places at once. So I missed perhaps some planning board meetings where they discussed these things more in detail, and I wasn't able to get that. But I think David Everett, or perhaps our consultants, could give me more of an understanding of why they could not build those houses on the steep slopes of 30% grade or greater in some other location. And I remember just anecdotally that was one of the reasons it was thrown out then, maybe there's more to it, is that it was part of their marketing strategy that they needed to sell those expensive houses to make their project run. And I don't have enough legal expertise to know whether that satisfies the need to build on 30% greater and to be granted that variance by the planning board. So I just want to make sure that we're following the spirit of the law, that we look at it carefully with the same hard look that we expected our planning board members to do, and they did. Unfortunately, I only learned about this I remember at the fair, I was trying to speed read, and I got through page 25 while we were waiting for my husband to finish his job at the booth he was manning. But it's been only August since I was given this, and I've been trying to bring myself up to speed, and I don't understand completely all of the reasons for the variances. And that's my own personal feeling, but maybe you all have something else that has stuck out in your mind as being something, but we haven't as a board even discussed that. And I know that Denise 2 days or 3 days ago said, if you want me to represent you and to help advise you, since you don't have the legal expertise to really feel comfortable perhaps reading this on your own and understanding it, if you need me to look at it, you need to tell me right away. I'm a town board member, I'm not the supervisor. I feel not like I can instruct her to do all of this homework on her own. I think that as a town board, I was compelled to ask the rest of the board, do you all feel comfortable understanding all of these documents and all the addendums? And we're not a rubber stamp. The whole idea of checks and balances is that we do our own homework, and that we do feel comfortable, and that we do stand behind these findings. And I believe that we can get there, but I feel that there may be conditions or typos or something that could prevent all of us from going through the agony of being Article 78. So if we rubber stamp this, it's already been an Article 78 on these findings that has been settled. But if they go and appeal it, and we say that we adopt these exact same things, I don't know the legal ramifications of that. Could it be that we spend 1 more, 2 more, 3 more meetings going over it and making sure that we are covering all of our bases? I don't have the legal expertise to say that I am ready to adopt this as it is. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, you certainly don't have to, quote, rubber stamp, the findings of the planning board. You certainly can request some additional studies
Modifications?
if you want, and you certainly can make some different findings if that's what you choose to do.
But through consultants.
Well, it depends what it is you're questioning. I mean, if
Right.
there's
I have a question
certain
of steep slopes,
experts that, and you want to look further into the studies that some of the experts did, you certainly can do that, and you may have different findings than the planning board had.
I think we
Certainly a
need
right to do
consulting
that.
to say,
Haven't the consultants already looked at this?
unfortunately, I'm not privy to all of the meetings that were taking place. There were a lot of meetings, and probably some of this was addressed at that time. But I haven't had a chance to look deep enough to reference all of the materials. But the one reference that I did look at didn't seem sufficiently to satisfy my own feeling that there was a good reason why they needed to put the houses on the 30% or greater steep slopes. That is unequivocally in our law, that the planning board has the right to waive that, but they have to first look and make sure that there isn't another viable plan, another place where they could put them. I didn't see that, but maybe I missed it. I mean, personally, I'd like to hear it.
Thank you, Pedro Torres. I think you bring some good questions regarding water quality, just your first one. We are required to monitor water quality, both upstream and downstream.
For how long?
DEC monitors forever, and it's part of our NRMP.
Okay,
So-
above and beyond, below the thing.
Correct. It's
And
part
what
of
do
our
they-
And we actually have, we started in 2009? And I believe there's 5 groundwater wells that we're monitoring moving forward. So it is not true that we're not monitoring water quality moving forward. It is as important to us and our clients to ensure the water quality stays intact. There's also a lot of the...
But downstream, what happens? I mean, you're monitoring it as it goes out as well.
Yes, correct. There's also the allegations regarding the well 25, contamination, all that. That's been reviewed in depth by 3 different engineers, all of which had agreed. It happens to be that I forget what their...
Systems.
Ecosystems didn't agree with their
Right. They didn't agree with the findings.
determination, but
Right.
it happens to be that the town's engineer agreed with what our engineer came up with as well.
So I would be interested in hearing that
And-
directly from our engineer. If
I
it's
think
not
Julie
already in a-
Mangarillo was here when that question was brought up, when the town
missed it. Right.
accepted that.
Right.
Actually, one of the conditions of the findings is that we have to satisfy all of the consultants' comments in writing before the site plan can be signed. So one of the memos which will be coming forward would be a satisfaction of all the conditions and comments that were through the process asked by each consultant. The, well 25 has been mentioned many times that it's going to be used for potable water use. It is not used for potable water use. It's been clear that it's not. It's actually not even clear whether it's going to be used for irrigation purposes. It was left in the application because the DEC required so, because they're reviewing it, and they might leave that well as a monitoring well moving forward. We don't know what they're going to do or not.
So you're not going to use it for irrigation either?
We technically don't need it. It's an extra well. But until the DEC is the one who issues the speedies permit. Nowadays, there's also a speedies permit required for irrigation as well, not just for potable water use. So until that water withdrawal permit is issued, we don't know what they're going to determine. They might determine we can use the well. They might determine that that well is going to be maintained for monitoring purposes. We don't know. So, but the well was never intended for potable water use. With regards to the 30% slope, there was, I believe, thousands of pages written and reviewed by several consultants regarding where the development was to be placed. And it wasn't analyzed in real depth. It was looked at all the possibilities where we could develop the property and how we could protect water, how we could protect the steep slopes, and ultimately where we could put it for protection of our view shed. The finding statement was actually drafted and prepared by the consultants, not by us. The visual section was prepared by George James. The steep slopes analysis was all done by together with Dr. Clemens, as well as the town engineer, Julie Mangarillo. They did require us to put significant amount more stringent water quality
But that's in
stormwater.
addition, mitigation and
Correct.
mitigation. So
Correct.
the first step is show why it has to be on these
We
steep
did.
slopes.
We spent since 2003 reviewing this project. We've looked at every single place where the project could be going. Where can it go? Either we go higher, which was more visual, which was what the previous approval was, or we went lower. You still have to maintain a certain amount of density in order to make the project viable. We looked at where we could place it.
Economically viable.
Correct.
So
Where?
my question is economically viable? What is that litmus test? Because an average person is going to be coming before us as well, asking for a waiver, and they're going to say, my project's not economically viable unless I build the big fancy house
But we
on the
looked,
ridge.
we looked at every single alternative there was
To make it economically viable.
to make it a successful project. At the end of the day, if we don't have a successful project, there's no project. Same way that we could take all the golf course out and just build regular residential
So
units,
do we see a
which we could build more.
spreadsheet that shows us that you're not going to, that they're
All
just
those,
simply
all
not
those, all those numbers were.
financially possible?
I understand that your opinion might be different,
Right.
and
Of
you've
course,
made.
we
oh, by the
all
way,
would have a different opinion
correct,
of
and
what
you've
a bottom line
and you've made
would
it
be.
very clear through the process, and those questions were answered. You made those questions and you asked those questions during all the public hearings, not just now, but also in the past.
Right. So what's
And-
the answer?
The answer is articulated already in the finding statement and all the other documents that were reviewed. To the extent that you don't like that maybe you don't like the answer or you don't agree
No,
with
I
it, I
just don't know
understand.
what economically viable would mean to the next applicant. If I had a steep slope in my backyard, many of us do, I don't, but if I did, I might say economically I can't put my family's house on anything other than the steep slope back.
But there's nothing in the zoning that prohibits you from building on steep slopes.
No, but you have to demonstrate why it can't be done elsewhere.
We did. We looked. You put it down, then you're in the wetlands. You got the golf course in the middle. We actually, in this application, reduced steep slope disturbance by 40% from the previous application. We also committed to more stringent water quality and erosion control measures as which the planning board required. For example, we're meeting East of Hudson's standards for the whole project, and on top of that, each individual single-family home has to apply for their own, they have to meet their own water quality review as well. Something that some don't think that they're supposed to do, but they have, and it has to be approved by the town engineer. There's also a limited amount of disturbance, there's limited amount of clearing. There's a lot of conditions that they put on those units to be developed. And when you start looking, it's not just, it's where do you put it? You have a golf course in the middle, you got steep slopes on the right, and you got water bodies in the left. It's a balancing act of how much buffers you want on the water, on the streams, and how much, and where you push. And that's what we worked with the consultants for 3 years now. Taking a project that had 700 units down to 250.
You have to have 26 houses in addition to all the other ones.
Yes.
That those 26 houses cannot be moved off the steep slopes and cannot be
We
eliminated from the
look,
project.
no, they can't be eliminated.
You can't pay for it otherwise.
We can't, no.
And we take your word for it that you can't pay for it otherwise. Is that right?
If,
I mean,
yeah,
is that what we have?
That's-
Your
that's-
word.
Drawings documenting that.
that's correct.
There are drawings.
No, I don't think there are.
Oh.
Didn't see them in the
Excuse me?
process. Are there drawings documenting your efforts to find out?
Could you go to the microphone?
Yes, there are.
Excuse me.
This isn't fair not being on there.
Yeah.
People were.
Yeah, so the question was, were there drawings documented? Yes, there were. There were actually 5 different plans that were prepared.
And are they part of a report?
They are part. You can go through the secret document. There are 5 different plans that were prepared.
They're in the secret document?
Yes.
Please don't shout out from the audience. If you have a question, you could go up to the
So could
podium
you
and
give
ask
us
it.
a hint
But
as to-
right now, Pedro has the floor.
There was the no build alternative.
No build?
No build
Okay.
alternative. There was 5 alternatives that were built during the secret process. In addition to that, there were several iterations that were done as with regards to those homes. One which was the first one we supplied in 2013, and then after that there were several iterations that happened. And the plan kept on changing in order to minimize visual impact and steep slopes disturbance. And the real fact is we actually reduced steep slopes disturbance by 40% on the new plan.
I'd just like to point out that Pedro keeps on making a fundamental mistake, that he keeps on talking about the reduction and the minimization of harm to the environment from the original project to the current modified project. But actually the law is that he mitigates, and the developer mitigates the environmental damage in total, as far as this new project is concerned, not as composed to compared to the old project, which would really change things. This 40% number that we've reduced the environmental damage, he's comparing it to the original project. He's not saying that...
That's right.
Which we haven't tried to build.
The bottom line is, you can twist it any way you want. The bottom line is you, as the lead developer in this situation, are not understanding that you have to mitigate the environmental damage from the possibility of the project itself, and not compared to any other project, any other ideas. There's a major difference between those two ways of doing things.
I think the town consultants seem to be perfectly on that. That's hearsay.
I think we've
It's not
had,
hearsay, it's the law.
excuse me, I think you can sit down now.
Thank you.
So, and Mike brought another point. There was actually a reason why some of those houses were moved there. Were actually, by Dr. Clemens, suggested the moving of some of those units there.
Which
'Cause
planner? The
Dr.
Marian-
Clemens.
Or Dr. Clemens.
Because there were originally, some of those units were originally across 44, and
Yep.
some of them were north by the,
So my question is, are we going to go through this entire process that the planning board spent years and hours on, and go through it and rehash it again as a town board? Is that what the opponents of Silo Ridge want us to go and do?
I think we don't want it to be held up in Article 78. I think universally, I've heard everybody in agreement say, avoid.
But I think there's a misunderstanding as to, my understanding is, each agency is supposed to provide their own findings as with regards to the permits they're issuing. The town of Amenia is not providing us any permit whatsoever with regards to anything that has to do with steep slopes or any of that. The town of Amenia permits that the town board is issuing are with regards to easements, the wastewater, the issuance of the approval of the consent to form the Wastewater Transportation Corporation, and the bonds. You know, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, well, the town of Amenia has to issue their own findings, and they're trying to now incorporate some of these extra comments into this again. We've reviewed this. The planning board as lead agency reviewed it. The town of Amenia had its chance to also comment during the process. So, you know, DEC is also reviewing this. New York State DOH reviewing it, Dutchess County DOH is reviewing it. And each one of them issues their findings with regards to the permits they're issuing.
Well, I'd just like to say I've seen the plans, and I think what you guys are going to be doing after it's all said and done is going to look beautiful. It's going to put Amenia right back on the map again. And I think a lot of hard work and time and effort by our planning board members. I think they should be commended for the time that they spent. And meanwhile, the fact of the matter is only one member of that board is actually paid for their time. And there was a lot of passion and a lot of work that went into it. And I'm going to take their findings and the findings of the consultants at their face value.
Okay, I think we're in the middle of a vote. Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion?
I certainly wouldn't have a problem.
I don't think so. The board is speaking
No, I
now.
was asking were you saying comment from the board?
No, from the board.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Sir-Action, I'm sorry.
I certainly wouldn't have a problem because we got so much additional information today and early in this week, putting this off until the next board meeting to vote on it. As Vicki said, it's a large amount of information. The details are important, and I think since we're saying in the resolution that the town board has carefully reviewed the findings, that we should carefully review it. I can't say I've been able to do that at this point because of the additional information that's come in.
It's a lot of information, and I think that Denise herself said clearly the little bit of legal advice we have received is that you should read this in its entirety, have questions. If you have questions, make sure they're answered before you weigh in on this, that you should look at all of the documents associated with this. That was my email from you. I think it probably went out to everybody. That's all the legal information I have had so far, other than David Everett confirming that we had to have our own separate findings. That's all I've had. I feel overwhelmed, frankly. There's a stack of information I have to go
which I
through.
believe you've had since August.
I've had since August the finding statements.
We've had this since August.
Yes, yes.
But
Late
not
August.
everything that came in.
Yeah, what came in today are the same
This
comments,
It's the same
that we've had
Not all of it.
dated in July. The same, I'm just reiterating, it's the same comments that we've had. They just did not like the response that they received from both the town consultants and our consultants.
The response on a lot of the...
Excuse me, please don't shout out from the audience.
You can go up to the podium, but I will say that the Article 78 was this thick. If it was this thick. So I didn't read all of the
Which two
problems that
different
people
firms
had.
looked at it and said they had no basis. And we would have been fine running the Article 78.
If you're going to shout out from the audience, you're going to have to leave.
So we had two different firms look at it. They went through it, and neither one of them, and you can ask this to David Everett, thought that the Article 78 had any basis whatsoever.
And Denise, did you have a chance to look at the Article 78, or you weren't authorized to look at this because David Everett was our lead
Right, Dave was,
lawyer?
I mean, I did look at the initial papers that were filed, but I didn't beyond that point because the board retained Dave to handle it.
Well, what we're voting on, we're not voting on the Article 78, we're voting on the finding statement.
There's documentation in the Article 78 that would be relevant to whether or not there's a continued basis for an Article 78. We've already had a suggestion that it will be appealed and that they will continue on.
The appeal wasn't on the Article 78. The appeal was on a new, and I don't know what the legal terminology is, a new group getting involved in there, which I'm not going to get into, but that's fine.
But if there are certain conditions that we can add to this that could minimize the chance of an Article 78, or making sure that the language is clear throughout, that we are...
I'm not saying what the town board has to do. I'm not, I'm not advocating here what the town board should do and should not do. I'm just letting you know what the process has been over 3 years. We've spent over $1 million just on town consultants reviewing this. There's thousands of hours spent by town consultants on this process.
My question is when do people's property rights get stomped on? When they have to go through this? I know this is a big project, but I think they've done their due diligence. And I think it's time that we move forward with it. You know, the planning board worked very hard on this. The consultants worked very hard on this. The people spoke, and the majority of the people supported it. So I think it's I think it's time to move ahead. I think enough is enough. What are we going to do? We got to wait for more people to move in the area and come out of the woodwork? Because what this boils down to is reestablishing the identity of the town of Amenia. And what they're doing, creating jobs, homes, tax base, is a good thing for Amenia. Because right now, we have hardly anything else. And the people in here deserve better. The people, the residents, the lifelong residents, deserve better. We don't have Taconic DDSO anymore. We don't have industry in here. All we have are squatters off of Old Route 22. We deserve better. And this is something that can be positive for the town of Amenia. We're also going to need a new firehouse. We're also going to need to look at our infrastructure. A project like this going through in our town can help bring in the dollars necessary to facilitate that stuff through grants, through taxes, through levying of a higher tax base. That's how communities grow.
If you put the conditions on it, they won't build you a firehouse otherwise.
If you,
They don't.
that's enough, Sharon. You are not to shout out again.
It's
or-
not their job to build us a firehouse.
Or you can leave.
There are plenty of millionaires and billionaires that live in Smithfield Valley that could have wrote the check for the Amenia Firehouse's new firehouse. Or Wasaik's for that matter. But where are they? We have a kitchen that we want to put in place here. They could write the check tomorrow and pay for that kitchen. They could pay for the generator. Where are they? No, they're filing Article 78 against Silo Ridge. And we're sick of it. The local people in this town, not the transplants, the lifetime residents of the region that live in Northeast, that live in Amenia, that live in Wasaik, South Amenia, Smithfield Valley, even Dover Plains, are fed up. We're being told what is best for us, and we're sick of it.
I think we're in the middle of a vote.
Question on the floor.
I just feel like I should respond to Stephen, since my husband and I paid for the plantings around the town hall, and just for instance, and I did pro bono work on the kitchen before anyone else got involved in it, so cool your jets.
Okay.
Cool my jets.
I think, I don't, this isn't a public comment time.
I think we need to take the vote.
We are in the middle of a vote. We're going to vote. And people need to stop shouting out from the audience. I'm not going to put up with it. I have a constable here. He will escort you out. That's enough.
We have somebody raising their hand politely to please respond to an awful lot of information. We have all waited for a long time to see such
Well,
things
then he
happen.
can come up here to the podium. At least he was polite enough to raise his hand instead of shouting out.
I have 2 points on what was just said. First of all, I just want to repeat that you've just heard very clearly that this well was not intended as a potable water well. And one of the things that I think you as a separate agency from the planning board have to take into account is new information. And unfortunately, due to timing, the letter that I've sent you is probably new information. But it is not factually correct for you to hear that this was never a potable water well when Stacy Stieber, LBG, writes to Peter Marlowe, professional engineer, senior public health engineer of the Dutchess County Department of Health. Below is a summary of the wells drilled to date in 2006 and 2014 that are proposed for use to meet the potable water needs. So, here's, as Vicki points out, there are some factual inconsistencies. Here's a very specific one. A letter, you don't need to take my word on it. You can ask the Dutchess County Department of Health whether they received this letter on April 29th, 2014. The other issue is, I think there is quite a lot of new information that's coming out just now. I've filed a Freedom of Information Act request on the town. I've filed a Freedom of Information Act request on the DEC. I've filed one on the United States EPA. I've not gotten a response for a key missing document, which governs the 10,400 gallons of this material that we know was dumped in the landfill. So this is new information. We do not yet have that report. I have asked Kirsten Gillibrand's office to compel the United States EPA to give me a copy of the report. Their FOIA response to me was, I had not proven potential danger to human health. There's 10,400 gallons we know of that was dumped there. The Phase 1 environmental study on the landfill said there was a trench where trucks could dump directly. So I don't want to get you into the minutia of all these water issues, which is the subject of my very long and big stack of hard copy that I delivered this morning. But there are new issues which have come before you. There are new issues that are coming before me. And I think it's attendant on you. I think it's your legal charge to make sure that your findings include all of the new information. So I think there's new information here on water in particular. I think we'll know shortly whether the DEC agrees with me, because I filed before the comment period, which is expiring tomorrow. So I would urge you to take the care to consider all of the new information on things like water. I think there are also issues where if any of you feel the finding statement is not something that is justified, I believe your obligation is you need to amend that finding statement or make your own finding statement. So I would applaud the effort to table this and have time for you to consider it and to take it up at a subsequent meeting. Thank you.
I'm ready to vote.
May I clarify the point with regards to the 2014 letter to Pete Marlowe? That letter was to let him know of the wells that had been drilled, and at that point we hadn't found enough water to sustain the project. So we were requesting for more wells to be drilled. At that point we were able to find more water, and therefore we didn't need to use well 25 nor 9 as part of our potable water system. And I think it's clear on the documentation from LBG moving forward when answering whether well 25 was going to be part of the potable water well or not. It's pretty clear that well 25 is not part of the potable water well. So just wanted to make that clarification. And DEC did receive your letter. They are reviewing it. They let us know that. They also received a couple more letters.
Norm?
Yeah, I'll make this real quick. There's nothing tonight that I heard or heard read or heard verbalized that wasn't presented to the planning board already in a public hearing sessions that were conducted. Everything that's been brought up tonight has been addressed by the planning board in detail by the consultants, and it's there to be read. Now, God bless if you want to go back and try to figure out the decision process with each one of those, because you're talking a massive amount of research, and we'll see you in about 6 months and you get done. It's that simple. The research has been done by a group of 7 people.
Well, just
Yep.
responding to you, on my own one little tiny narrow issue of steep slopes, I respect Dr. Clemens. I think he's a phenomenal. I'm so pleased that we had him on this project, because nobody is better at him than trying to move, work with developers and make sure that the environment, do the best you can. It's a compromise, right? Because you can't say all the biota and all that. But I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to give him a call, or haven't had really access. This is costing money for me or the town board to have some expert like Dr. Clemens come in and show us the different reasonable, there are 7 different iterations, he said, that showed us why those 26 houses couldn't go anywhere but on the steep slopes. And I would like Dr. Clemens to clarify to me, and maybe to the rest of the town board, why in this instance it's so important to have those houses break our and it's something that we want to make sure, as a precedent, we can face the next set of applicants
He's going
who also want to ask.
He's just going to reiterate what's already in the public record. What's already been
I
discussed.
don't see it myself. I'm not a
Well, you
legal
don't have-
expert, and I
that's what I'm saying.
didn't go to all of them, because only in August did I know that the town board was going to have to do this on its
You
own.
could
I
bring-
would have paid a lot more
You
attention
could
and
bring
maybe
up a million
attended.
questions that haven't been answered to your satisfaction right now,
Right.
and they can probably all be referred back to the public record. But to spend that amount of time to do that, you're going to be there for a long time.
I don't think it'll take that long to figure out
whatever,
steep
okay.
slopes and why
It's your
that
vote to-
waiver
it's your
was
vote to do.
granted.
I'm just telling you, everything you're talking about has been already discussed by the planning board in detail
I'm
in
sure it
public
has.
hearings and
But
documented.
I don't have the faith that I can say unequivocally that all of those waivers were granted, and that I stand behind it, and I understand completely why they were necessary.
I'll defer to Denise on this also, as far as what the town's allowed to actually impact in this findings process. When you talk about the environmental reviews in other areas that the planning board has responsibility for, the town as an involved agency had first responsibility to bring these issues up at the public hearings, not now.
We did.
And they were addressed, like I said, yes.
But I
agree with
don't
that. And,
have enough information.
to bring them up now and to expect them to be heard, and essentially you're almost running another public hearing in that process, I think that would be a problem down the road. From the planning board point of view. And that's what I've been told by Dave Everett, and I believe that's what the case would be. But again, the town's free to do whatever they want as far as.
That we
how they're
have
gonna
to
proceed.
accept the findings as
No,
they are.
no, I'm not saying that, no. You've got certain areas that you're allowed to deal with the finding statement as far as town board, what the town board's authorized to do. The planning board has certain areas they're responsible for and have dealt with. And again, you can't go back and start giving recommendations from the town board to the planning board that could have been addressed in the public hearing. That time's passed. And there's a reason why public hearing dates are set and closed, and you move on from there.
But the comments aren't all in, so we don't
But
have...
you can address these comments, and there'll be more coming in the month after. There's a reason those hearings are closed and no further comments are taken.
So we can't
plus-
read the
no,
letters?
and I'm telling you, the information that's been received today, that I've read, that I've heard people mention, has already been dealt with. It's already been brought up at public hearings. Go to the transcripts yourself, look it up, it's all there.
Is that true, that we don't have the legal right to discuss these issues and review
That's
these
not what I said,
findings?
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
That isn't what he said.
So what was your feeling, that we don't have the right to...
There are certain areas you can impact with the town's findings, the areas that the town has purview within. There are other areas you won't be allowed to go with. Well, you can. If you go there, it can be contested and probably upheld in court, from what I've been told. Again, I'm going based on our attorney's advice. When it comes down to the secret review process and the environmental impacts and so forth, the town's overstepping its boundaries when it gets to that area.
Is that true?
Well, the thing is, in the other resolutions that we're going to look at tonight, I mean, we're mentioning in there that, you know, if the town board adopts the findings of the planning board, that you're using that kind of to satisfy your obligations under seeker for the actions that you're going to be taking.
That's what you're speaking to, are those particular actions, not the environmental issues and so forth.
Right.
Okay, can we vote? Since we're in the middle of one.
We'd really like, though, just to table this.
We cannot table in the middle of a vote.
Okay.
No, we can't, and we're not going to. Vote, please.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
No?
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
No.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, do you want to do the rest of the resolutions after and do the presentation now, since he's here? Or do you want to do the rest of the resolutions and get them done?
I would do a presentation.
Should allow the fellow who's come probably a distance to give his presentation.
Do you want to set it up so you can do the presentation now?
No, we don't have a power cord for my projector, so if
While
he
he's
doesn't...
setting up, I'm going to take a photo.
He
Yes,
doesn't have a
sure,
power
go
cord.
ahead.
Setting up.
I'm going to go reprint these because they have you signing them on the bottom and Vicky's name is spelled wrong, and I'm just going to go respace these.
Okay.
I move that we take a 5-minute recess from the regular town board meeting.
I second.
That we bring the town board meeting back into regular session.
I'll second.
10:20 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. Do you want to do the presentation so James could go home to his little boy?
Thank you. Good evening. My name's James. I'm a registered municipal advisor. I work for a company called Capital Markets Advisors. We assist municipalities across the state of New York to obtain financing through municipal bonds and notes. So this evening, we wanted to spend some time just kind of discussing with you the process involved in that, some of the players involved, just a general overview, and to answer any questions that you may have. So probably the most important thing when you're considering to finance either a capital project or an operational need of the town is you want to reach out to a financial advisor, your bond counsel, very early on in the process. It's our role in that process to advise you on the necessary steps and what you have to go through in order to obtain financing for that. So just to start off, I'll give you a little summary about my firm, specifically what we do, and then I'll spend some time discussing bond counsel, who's probably the next most important group within the general process. So as a financial advisor, it would be our firm that would assist you with actually structuring the debt, deciding on what would be the most applicable debt for whatever projects you might be looking at. There are a number of different forms of debt that we can look at. Now, probably the two that you should know right off the bat is something called municipal bonds, and the other is called municipal notes. The difference between the two is one is a short-term obligation. That would be your note. The bond is a long-term obligation. You'd want to think of something like a fixed-rate mortgage, for instance. Now, there's pros and cons to each, and we can get involved in some of those discussions as things begin to progress forward. Now, generally, when a town is, or a municipality is going on issuing debt, you'd be placing something called your general obligation pledge. Essentially, that's your ability to raise money through property taxes. That's why municipal bonds carry such generally low interest rates comparatively in the market, and they're considered to be very safe. So in addition to structuring the debt, my firm would also assist you if you need to obtain a credit rating going through that process. It's very similar to some of the disclosure documents that we provide to investors. What the rating agencies would look at, we'd give you guidance on that, help you to with your preparations for speaking to them. We would work directly hand in hand with the investors. That's who essentially would be financing whatever projects you were looking to issue debt for. Generally speaking, the disclosure documents that you'd be providing to them would be based on the par amount that you'd be going out and issuing, so the amount of funds that you needed. There's a number of different disclosures that we can provide to them. For the most part, a lot of the transactions we do are done so in a competitive fashion, meaning we provide the documents to those investors, we give them ample time to review it, they'll come back with sealed bids on a specific day and a specific time. We'll accept bids right up to that point. We'd reach out to you at that time, review the bids with you. We'd generally be selecting the lowest interest rate, and then we would make an award to that investor based off of those bids. There are instances when you can do something else, which is called a negotiated sale. That's when you know right from the get-go who's going to be purchasing that debt, and you'd be working with them right through the whole process. Now, bond counsel is another entity that I wanted to discuss with you. They're very, very active in the process, particularly very early on. Now, I believe that the town presently works with Oric Hearing.
Douglas Goodfriend.
Douglas Goodfriend. We're very familiar with Douglas. We work with him all the time. He's an excellent bond attorney. Now, Douglas's role in this process, the very first step is to adopt something called a bond resolution. Douglas would be preparing that for you, and the board would have to consider that, vote on it, and adopt it. That's done as the first step because that's what essentially gives you the authority to go out and issue debt. I like to consider those documents as a bit of a series of limits. It's going to, define the amount of funds that you can go out and issue for a specific project, but the other important thing is it's going to tell you the term that you can go out for that specific project. And depending on what you're issuing, it could be very different. Some have a 5-year life, some have 10. It goes all the way up to 40 years. So it's going to be outlined in that document. Now, the reason that I call it is a form of limits is because you're not required to go to the maximum. So if, for instance, you're considering a capital project that might cost $1 million, by adopting that resolution, you're not required to spend $1 million. If you find out that it's going to be $900,000, you can issue that amount of funds. If, for instance, it has a useful life term of 10 years, you're not required to finance over 10 years. We can assist you with some different calculations, perhaps show you what a 5-year term might be. You just can't exceed any of those amounts that's in that resolution. So that would be your first step in the process, adopting that resolution. It can be time-consuming going through that. It can take upwards of 2 months to get that in place. Primarily, that's because there's 2 periods that you have to be aware of. One is a permissive referendum, which is 30 days. The other is called an estoppel. That's another 20-day period. So it's 50 days to go through that. It's not to say that we can't work on our disclosure documents as we're in that process, but we need to make sure that both of those periods have expired before we actually issue the debt and you have funds in hand. So if you're considering a project, you want to think about adopting that right away. Additionally, if you're thinking about perhaps reimbursing yourself for funds, if you're going to be putting funds out front and you're going to reimburse yourself from bond proceeds, you need to have that resolution in place before you use your own funds, because again, that's just showing your intention to eventually issue debt and reimburse yourself. Again, as I know, bond counsel will help prepare that. They'll give you the instructions on the adoption process. You can either reach out to them and ask them to do that for you, or you can contact me. Like I said, I work with Douglas all the time, so we can contact him too once it's time for that. Now, some of the other roles of bond counsel. When we draft our disclosure documents for the investors, we provide copies in the very beginning stages to our inner working group. So bond counsel would be one of those entities. The town would be another. We provide them and ask you to review it. Now, bond counsel is going to look at a lot of legal language in there. Essentially, they're putting their stamp on it that the bonds or notes are in fact tax exempt. There's a number of other disclosures in there which are legal in nature regarding some of the state bond laws, so they'll be commenting on that. Another big section of those disclosure documents is generally providing a financial overview. It gives investors generally a snapshot of the town at any given point. That's, we'd really be asking you to go through and look at some of that with us, and just to make sure that everything is accurate. Some of the other entities that you would need to be aware of, we touch base on it, but the rating agencies, depending on the types of debt that we issue, it may be necessary to go out and approach one of them. There's 3 primary rating agencies that you want to be aware of in the municipal sector: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. The 2 largest are Moody's and Standard & Poor's, so we could make a selection of one of the 2 of those, assuming that we would want to obtain one of those ratings. And again, we'll walk you through the process, what they're looking at, some of the questions that they may ask, and anything else involving the agencies themselves. Some other entities that perhaps are not necessarily in our inner circle, but you will come across in the process, would be a firm called DTC. A lot of times when the investors purchase your debt, it goes through DTC. So DTC ends up actually paying the investors. You pay DTC, it distributes the money to whoever holds those bonds. Depending on the types of debt that we are issuing, it is also possible that a bank could just hold the debt themselves and you would pay them directly. So you may see DTC, you may not. The regulatory agencies, certainly they oversee anything that we do. So you're gonna see things from the SEC, the IRS. They're always out there looking at over our shoulders. So, do you have any questions so far that I might be able to answer?
This is all about a bond resolution. I'm sorry. We started with a bond resolution. You said there are different structured debt.
Yes.
And so following down, you're taking us down through the steps.
Correct.
Of that.
But the bond resolution is the first step.
Yeah. So let's look at it, step by step for now. So the bond resolution.
The bond is the first option that you're offering, that you're telling us about.
Bond resolution.
Bond resolution. That's gonna
That gives us permission to go out to
borrow.
It's giving you permission.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep. So that's whether we're doing notes or bonds. The notes they're called bond anticipation notes. So you're technically issuing them in anticipation of eventually issuing bonds. So that resolution covers either of those things.
Okay.
Now, excuse me. The thing to bear in mind with the short-term bond anticipation notes, they mature within a period of 1 year. It doesn't mean that you're going to pay the full note off within a year. What we would do is, come maturity next year, you would make a principal pay down, we would go back into the market, and we would renew just a portion of that debt. So the portion we'd be renewing would be less your principal contribution, and we would advise you as to what that amount would be so you could budget appropriately. You can stay in bond anticipation notes for most projects, excluding water, for a period of 5 years. That's what the New York State laws allow for. At some point within that 5-year period, you'd be required to go to serial bonds if they're not paid off. Now, the reason that you might consider something like that, staying in bond anticipation notes kind of early on in the process, if you're doing something that's going to be, going over a number of years as you're in your construction phases, amounts could possibly change. You may not know, exactly the scope of the project. It makes sense because you have much more flexibility with bond anticipation notes. We know that we have to access the market each year, annually. So say, for instance, you took out $700,000. It only ends up costing you $600,000. At one of our renewal dates, we could take the excess funds, the $100,000, and pay it off. So you're not paying interest on that moving forward. Serial bonds don't offer that option. It's like I said before, it's kind of think of it as a fixed rate mortgage. When you borrow and you contact investors for a serial bond, you're locking your payments in. We know what your principal payments are going to be. We know what your interest rates are going to be, what your payments on those are.
You can't pay it off early.
We generally put an 8 to 10 year call feature on serial bonds, meaning for those first 8 to 10 years, you can't pay those off. After that, we will make them callable, so you could refinance them. If interest rates are lower at that point in time, you would have the option to do that.
Okay.
So we would assist you again with looking at some of those different options. I know I have had some conversations with the town's grant writer. So I know sometimes with grants you need to pre-fund things. So something like that, it could be possible that notes might make more sense. You have to pre-fund it, but 2-3 years exactly.
Then to pay the note off for the trail.
Exactly.
Would be a good idea.
So when the funds come in, then at your maturity date,
Right.
you would apply the grant funds to pay it down, and then you would only really be bonding whatever excess was out there.
Less, yeah, once we get through that
Correct.
phase, yeah.
Now, also with planning, you want to bear in mind timing. So if you have more than one project that's going out, what we might look to do is if the timing needs are different, we may look to at some point marry them together on a future maturity date. So when it does finally become time to bond, you put everything together, you bond at the one time, and that's it. Now, there's a number of reasons that you would want to do something like that. First and foremost, the investors who are issuing to, they like larger par amounts. So the more money that you're issuing to them, you're going to open up a larger pool of investors. Each one has a certain set of guidelines that they may look at. So you'll see some investors won't bid on anything that's below $1 million. Some $5 million, some $50 million. It just kind of ranges up. So the larger you get, you're opening yourself to a larger pool of possible investors. The other thing to consider is bonds can be expensive. Comparatively to notes, generally you'll have to get the credit rating with bonds, so there's a cost involved in that. Our fees generally going to be higher with serial bonds because they're more complex. Bond counsel, sometimes there's publishing fees with those, so it's a larger expense. So you don't want to be doing that multiple times if you don't have to. While we're on the subject of expenses, what you want to consider with bond anticipation notes, because we know that we're going to have to access the market at least once a year for those while we're in that note period, the cost of issuance becomes an annual expense. So you'll want to budget appropriately for that.
Now, the first thing we are going to have to borrow for is our heating system, which I've spoken to you about.
Yes.
Which looks like it have a cost around $700,000 maybe.
Correct.
So we could go ahead and do the bond resolution, but we could do it for more than that, but we wouldn't have to borrow that amount. Is that correct?
Yes, you want to generally have a good idea of the costs that you're going to be incurring for it, and you want to be as close as possible in that resolution. If you issue or if you adopt for $700,000 and you end up only borrowing $650, that's certainly fine. So you want to give yourself at least that room. But also, when we are looking to the rating agencies, they might ask you about what types of authorizations you have kind of pending out there. So they don't want to see you, maybe authorizing like $1.5 million when your actual plan is to only borrow, $600,000 or $700,000. So they'll consider things of that nature too.
Yeah,
you want to be generally close.
Now I believe the useful life of the heating system is 10 years. It was either 10 or 15 when I asked.
Bond counsel will be able to define that.
Yeah, I did talk to Douglas about that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. He said either 10 or 15 years.
15 rings in my head,
Yeah.
but I always defer to bond counsel. A lot of times even when I'm pretty positive on that, just because that falls, really in line with, their expertise. And sometimes there are, some intricacies.
So if we were going to, we have to borrow for the heating system, say that's 700,000. And then after that, we have to start construction on Trail to the Train, which is more like 900,000, which would have a different useful life. I don't know what they would consider like for the Trail to the Train.
I'm not sure, what the
It's,
useful life
it's
would be
building
on
a
that.
building, we would probably find that out from bond counsel.
Yes.
And then somewhere in the mix, if we, we would like to build a highway garage. So I think the estimates on that were around 700,000.
Correct. So what we probably want to do is start looking at, general timeframes. When would you be looking to issue each one of those debts? And again, that's when we want to kind of consider, can we set our maturity dates, together so we can get as much of these together?
Well, it would be next year for the heating system.
Right, in I believe you said the spring, roughly.
Yeah.
So we'd want to look at some of the other ones too. And again, for that, the reason that we're looking to marry those is we want to make sure that we're being cautious with what it's costing you to access the market. If you're going out 3 different times during the year, you're going to have to pay me 3 times. You're going to have to pay bond counsel 3 times. And plus, like I said, the larger the par amount, the better the interest rate you're going to get from the investors. So, it benefits you in a number of different perspectives. So we'll want to look at the different dates and see how we can kind of arrange them.
Kind of meld them.
Exactly. And that's certainly, excuse me, that's certainly something that we do very frequently. We can track internally, those projects separately for you, but in terms of going out to investors, we can issue it in one lump sum. A lot of the times our disclosure documents will include a little table that will just break out the different projects that are involved. So, it would specify to them, we're borrowing $700,000 for some HVAC improvements, for the highway garage, another $700,000. We can break that out separately. In terms of structuring bonds, once we would get to a point where we're looking to do that long-term financing, there's a couple different ways we can structure those. Perhaps the most common is something that's called the level debt method. What we do for that is we look at each one of your projects, what the useful life is on them, how much money you're borrowing for each, and we do like a weighted average. So we blend them all together. So if you have some projects that maybe are 10 years and some are 20, we'll make that calculation. If my calculation says we can borrow for 14 years maximum, that's what the law allows. So we would, we can provide you with some estimates for 14 years. If you wanted to see 10 years, if you felt that was more applicable to the amount of money that you wanted to spend annually, we can look at that as well. But once we do that calculation, again, that's kind of similar to the bond resolution. It gives us the maximum term that we can issue.
Yeah, I believe the other thing that you could do for us, because we want to do a capital project spreadsheet so that we can, plan on our debt for, every year going forward and, how much of an impact it'll, have on the taxpayers.
Sure, we could certainly assist with that.
And did you want to talk about your fees a little bit? So
sure, it depends. What we're generally issuing. If you're going out with a par amount that's below $1 million, we can generally just use something that's called a term sheet. A term sheet's very simple. It's like a 2 to 3 page document. Really, all it's doing is highlighting to investors the town of Amenia is looking to borrow, X amount of dollars. We're planning to sell it on this date. Doesn't get into a lot of the disclosure items. That's the cheapest form, from a fee perspective. From us, from bond counsel, we're generally, depending on the projects involved, we're somewhere between $2,500 to $3,000 for that. For bond anticipation notes above $1 million, we would recommend doing something called an official statement. Now, that official statement is what's going to get involved in the finances of the town. It provides investors with a general look at your tax base. I know you don't really have any debt outstanding right now, but we do have a big section there which will indicate to them your debt limit, how much debt the state legally is going to allow you to go out and borrow for, things of that nature. It's a pretty big document. We'd work very closely with you for that. So for bond anticipation notes, we're generally in the range of $5,000 for the official statement. And again, remember with notes, that becomes an annual expense. For serial bonds, we're generally about double that. It's about $10,000 for the issuance of serial bonds.
Because it's one time, unless we refinance?
It's a one-time deal. You're locking your rates in at that point. So yes, unless you refinance, which you'd need to choose to do, obviously rates would have to be better, and you'd want to see interest savings. Then you would, elect to call them in at that point in time. Right now, rates are very low, so we see a lot of our clients are going out into the markets and refinancing some of their older debts.
What is the typical municipal bond going for about now?
They range.
Between 1
It
and
depends
2.
how long it depends how long you're going out for. So the longer the term, generally you're going to see it's a slightly higher interest rate. You can think of almost like a curve. So the longer it's going, investors will want, more of a return on kind of the back end of the bonds.
Right.
They can be very intricate. Each year of the bonds kind of has its own interest rate tied to it. So when we discuss rates, a lot of the times what we'll talk about is kind of like an average rate. So we're looking at the average rate over it. So you might see for like a 15-year bond right now, you might be roughly around the 3% range, for a well-rated municipality. And it fluctuates with the markets. The markets can swing, pretty considerably with, a number of different events.
Or they could be lower.
They could be lower. We've been pretty low for a long time now. So,
Yeah.
I've been saying it for years to a lot of our clients. They're going to go up at some point. We've been in kind of this unique phase where every time we think that, maybe the Fed's going to raise rates, which would bring up our market, just something happens, whether it's, domestically or even in the foreign markets with Greece. It drives investors to the municipal bond market just because it's thought to be a very safe investment. So when there's volatility somewhere else, they'll come to our market because they know that they can essentially park their money here and it's safe. They're going to get at least some return and they're not risking it. So it's kind of a unique last few years. It's just there's constantly been something that's been holding the rates down. We really thought that they'd be going up considerably this fall. It hasn't happened yet. Some indication that maybe in December they're going to go up again.
It's like Chicken Little.
It really is. And
you keep hearing,
yes.
They're going to go up. They're going to go up. And
yes.
They didn't.
I can tell you, we get asked the question all the time. The best I can say is at some point they will go up. It's just a matter of when. The longer you look out, the more chance you have for being inaccurate.
Yeah, I believe you told me you were doing this for the county right now.
Yes, so I can tell you a little bit about our firm. We represent about 500 municipalities across New York State. We're pretty much exclusively New York State. I think we have a couple clients in Massachusetts, but primarily we're New York, which is it's good because we're familiar with the New York State bond laws. We work with school districts, cities, villages, towns, some agencies, pretty much anything in the general local government municipal sector. We have 5 offices. Each one's generally regional. We work kind of around us. So my office is located here in Dutchess County. It's in Hopewell Junction. So we're kind of in the Dutchess County, Westchester, Rockland area. We represent quite a few entities around here. So specific to Dutchess County, to name a few, we do represent the county itself. We do the city and town of Poughkeepsie, city of Beacon, the town of LaGrange, town of Wappinger. For school districts, we do Dover, Millbrook, Wappinger's Central School District. So we're in the markets very frequently, if not in this general area, at least in one of our other firms, which is good too because it keeps us plugged in with investors. And in terms of picking up on general flavors throughout the market, we all do work very closely. So in our office in Dutchess County, it's myself and there is one other advisor. If I'm ever not available to chat with you, you can always call and speak to her too. And the supervisor has met.
It's Heather.
It's Beth Ferguson's her name.
Beth, yeah.
So she's always available. One of us will always be there to answer any questions. We like to kind of consider ourselves interchangeable, and then we have a support staff under us that will also assist us.
Now, your company is the company that was formerly owned by Sal Panini?
That's correct. Ray Hart and Sal Panini.
Sal guided the town through many bond anticipation notes over the years.
Yes. So Ray and Sal, when they elected to retire, we came in and essentially Beth took over for Sal, and I took over for Ray. We've kind of kept the same breakdown of clients.
So if we need the heating system to be installed in the spring, we should start a couple of months ahead of time at least to give us the time frames that we need for the
Yes, and
process.
I don't think I really, at this point, have really stepped you through that process yet. I've been saying I was going to, and I haven't. So yes, you'll adopt your resolution first and foremost. Then depending on the par amounts we're issuing, a couple other things, I would give you some guidance on what I think would be the most applicable type of financing for you. We would work on our disclosure documents. The first step of that is a draft phase. It's only being circulated at that point within our inner working group. So again, us, the town, bond counsel, sometimes we'll bring auditors in if they need to do a review, but that's really pretty much it. After that, we would send it out to investors. We consider it a public document at that point. We're sending it out to them so they can do their own credit review and make a decision if they want to bid or not. We post it to our website. We have a distribution list that goes around to. It's about, I think we have roughly 75 investors or so that are on that. There's a lot of investors that you've heard of, the Bank of Americas, JP Morgans. There might be some others that, some people are going to be familiar with, some won't, like Roosevelt and Cross. They purchase a lot of bonds here in New York. But they don't have like retail branches, so you're not going to drive down the street and see a Roosevelt and Cross Bank. But they're very active in this specific market, so they're included on those lists. A lot of times it also gets printed in our industry newspaper. It's called The Bond Buyer. Investors are familiar with our firm, so they know that we're posting those disclosure documents to our website. They can access them from there. So if they see it in the Bond Buyer, they can come and obtain whatever document it is. In those documents, we're going to select the sale date. The sale date is generally done again, through a competitive sale, meaning we're taking sealed bids in our office. On that date of the sale, we would obtain everything. Depending if we're doing bonds or notes, we have to verify that everything was bid correctly. We'd provide the town with a summary of those bids. Assuming that you're happy with everything, we would select an investor. We would make an award. At that point, bond counsel would be reaching out to you. They would assist you with the closing documents needed to finalize that transaction. They would send you a package, advise you, what needs to be signed, where it needs to be sent. You would go through that. Once everything is completed with that, essentially we have a funding date, and that would be the date that you would obtain your cash.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions, or?
Well, at 10 to 11 at night, I think.
You guys are going to sleep great tonight. Just think about everything that I said, and you
But
will
this
be
is
sound asleep.
This is definitely helpful, especially God bless you over there.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's that time of year. This is going to be definitely helpful. I know that I'm going to be, my term ends at the end of the year, but for the rest of the board members and the new board member coming in, I think this will be a good first step as to getting a plan as to what we're going to do in the future.
Sure. I would encourage you, call me, ask me questions. We're transactional the way we charge, so I'm not going to, if you call me and ask questions, I'm not going to send you a bill for, saying I worked for a few hours. We only charge if we close on something, so call me, lean on me. A lot of our clients don't really take advantage of that, but you should.
It's very helpful. Sorry, we're so tired.
No, like I said, you'll sleep great tonight.
So will you if you ever
That's
get
right.
home.
That's right.
Well, I think it's good.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I'll leave some business cards, so you have my contact info. And again, like I said, certainly call me.
And we thank you for your patience with us.
Thanks.
We really appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you very much.
Drive carefully.
Thank you.
Did you want to think about this or make a decision tonight whether to hire this company, because we're going to have to do the bond resolution pretty soon? Or do you want to wait till the next meeting?
Is there anybody else that's going to interview, or this is basically the only company?
No, I basically called him because that company this town has dealt with for many years.
Do you want to look for
And
other
they
companies?
have a very good reputation. You can, that's why I gave you their statement of qualifications. You can go on their website and look. You can call them and ask them questions, whatever you want to do. But they're a very reputable company. And we're going to need somebody like them to get us through all the borrowing and things we have to do. So if you want to just take some time and,
Yeah, why don't we
look
just
on their website and
go on their
then,
website and stuff, and we'll do it next meeting?
and then we can do it next meeting. Okay, do you want to do the resolution to approve settlement in Boyd versus Town of Amenia matter?
Who do we have left in the audience? Good.
Or, Roger, did you want to talk to us about,
I'm certainly available to answer any questions. I don't have a presentation per se.
no, that's okay. Why don't we have other matters on here. Why don't we just put Roger under other matters? What Roger is here about is to talk about the resolution that we had for Cablevision. Do you want to come up to and just tell us what?
Well, as I'm sure you're familiar, that Cablevision is merging with a international communications company called Altice. And as part of the regulatory process, the FCC requires, because of the way the franchise is written, that the town approve the transfer of the controlling interest of the company from Cablevision to Altice. In a sense, Altice becomes the new parent company, and Cablevision will be a wholly owned subsidiary of Altice. And based on the language of the franchise agreements, the transfer languages from one controlling entity to another, certain municipalities need to approve that consent of the merger. And 2 weeks ago, you had the resolution before you and voted no on it. And though I can't pretend to understand what the original intention was, I don't think the intent that Cablevision perceived was the message that you were trying to deliver, because when Cablevision learned of that, they saw it as a vote against the merger, that you were not giving consent to the transaction. And the down the road complications of that would be, if this deal between Cablevision and Altice goes through, and it's a new parent company, the way the franchise is written right now, Cablevision would be in a breach of contract. And that could create more legal complications down the road. So that's where we are right now. I've had an opportunity to talk to Ms. Fitzpatrick and the supervisor about some of the details of this. And certainly I understand that there's a need to spend some more time to review the FCC required document, that large binder. It's called the 394 document, and to become familiar enough with Altice so that you feel certain that this company can handle 3 criteria: the legal, fiscal, and technical capabilities to maintain the franchise agreement and continue to fulfill all the provisions within. And so I'm asking you tonight to rescind the resolution that you voted no on 2 weeks ago. Take the time to review the documents and then move forward based on that review.
Okay, I make a resolution to rescind Resolution Number 41 of 2015, the resolution approving the change of indirect control of the franchisee under the cable television franchise.
Second that.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Thank you. And I will follow up over the next few weeks, and we'll move forward from there.
Okay,
Thank you very
for
much.
coming
I
in.
appreciate it.
Okay, resolution to approve settlement in Boyd versus Town of Amenia matter. Where am I at? 44, 45?
Yeah.
Resolution approving entry of order and judgment in litigation by Scott W. and Beulah J. Boyd against the Town of Amenia at a regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Amenia held at the Amenia Town Hall on the 19th day, still the 19th, of November 2015 at 7 p.m. Town Supervisor Victoria Perotti called the meeting to order.
Seconded.
I make that motion. Becky seconds. Introduce the following resolution. Whereas on or about April 21st, 2014, litigation was commenced under Dutchess County Index Number 2014/1989 by Scott W. Boyd and Beulah J. Boyd as plaintiffs against the people of the state of New York, the town of Amenia, and others claiming certain rights and property located on the westerly side of New York State Route 22 and on the easterly side of said plaintiff's property in the town of Amenia. Whereas the disputed parcel consists of approximately 0.48 acre, a portion of which is claimed by the state of New York to be highway right-of-way. Whereas the remaining portion of the disputed parcel was allegedly abandoned by the state of New York in or about 1942 when a section of New York State Route 22 was relocated to the east. Whereas any interests of the town in said disputed parcel or in the remaining portion thereof not claimed by the state of New York as highway right-of-way is uncertain and undetermined. Whereas the plaintiffs have proposed a resolution of such lawsuit against the town by the entry of an order and judgment barring the town of Amenia from claiming any estate, right, or interest of whatsoever nature in the disputed parcel, removing the town of Amenia from the caption of the action. Now therefore be it resolved that after discussions with the town attorney in executive session, the town board hereby determines that any interest of the town in the disputed parcel or the remaining portion thereof is not claimed by the state of New York as highway right-of-way is uncertain, and even if proven to exist would be of insignificant or no value to the town, that continuing to defend the subject litigation with the attendant costs and attorney's fees is not prudent or justified under the circumstances and is not in the best interest of the town. Be it further resolved that pursuant to the powers granted to the town board pursuant to New York State Town Law Section 68 and other applicable laws, the town board hereby determines that the entry of an order and judgment by Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Dutchess, as proposed by the plaintiffs, barring the town of Amenia from claiming any estate, right, or interest of whatsoever nature in the disputed parcel and removing the town of Amenia from the caption of the action by the plaintiffs, is just, reasonable, and in the best interest of the town. Be it further resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the town attorney to take all actions as may be necessary to facilitate the entry of an order and judgment by Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Dutchess, as described herein. foregoing resolution was voted upon with all councilwomen, councilmen voting as follows.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
And Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Okay, resolution for Dutchess County Planning, IMA, intermunicipal agreement. Resolution number 46. Moving right along. Authorizing entering into agreement with county regarding certain referrals pursuant to general municipal law. Whereas New York State General Municipal Law, Section 238, requires local municipalities to refer applications for certain planning and zoning actions to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for review. Whereas New York State General Municipal Law authorizes the county to enter into agreements with local municipalities in order to determine which, if any, of the local municipal actions subject to referral may be deemed strictly matters of local determination and therefore not subject to the referral process. Whereas the county has proposed to eliminate the necessity of the county's review and comment on the following local actions. A, administrative amendments, zoning amendments regarding fees, procedures, penalties, etc. B, special use permits, use variances, and area variances for residential uses. And C, renewals, extensions of site plans or special permits that have no changes from previous approvals. Whereas after due consideration, the town board has determined that it will be in the best interest of the town to enter into agreement with the County of Dutchess as proposed to eliminate the necessity of the referrals of the above referenced local actions. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby approves the agreement between the County of Dutchess and the town of Amenia in the form annexed to this resolution, and be it further resolved that the town supervisor on behalf of the town is authorized to enter into and execute the attached intermunicipal agreement with Dutchess County to eliminate the requirement to refer certain local actions to Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for review. Someone make that motion?
Full motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
And Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
Resolution number 47, transfer of funds for November 2015. Whereas the town board has the authority to transfer funds when necessary or unanticipated to amend the budget. Whereas budget amendment increasing the expense line 11104.1.78.0, Justice's CE training by $93.34, and decreasing the expense line 11104.1.72.0, Justice's CE interpreters by $93.34 for additional training costs. Whereas budget amendment increasing expense line 16204.1.54.0, building CE electrical by $2,220, and decreasing line 35102.1.0.0 dog control EQ by $920, decreasing line 35104.1.0.0 dog control CE by $300, and decreasing line 35104.1.63.0 dog control CE mileage by $1,000 for additional electrical repairs. Whereas budget amendment in the Amenia Water Fund, increasing expense line 0511.01.06.0.0 general repairs PS by $3,000, and expense line 051-104.06.0.0 general repairs CE by $3,000, decreasing line 83404.6.0.0 transmission distribution by $6,000 for water main repair expense documentation. Whereas budget amendment increasing expense line 73104.1.970 programs for Amenia Farm CE by $621.24, and decreasing expense 71104.1.0.0 Amenia Park CE by $621.24 for CPR training costs. Whereas budget amendment increasing revenue line 2770.1.0.0 unclassified revenues by $12,889.79 in expense line 80204.1.0.0.1.32, Planning CE, for $12,889.79 for MTA monopole cost. Whereas budget amendment increasing revenue line 2705.1.0.0 gifts and donations for $1,150 and increasing expense line 16204.1.62 building CE maintenance for $1,150 for auditorium floor repair. It's further resolved that this resolution shall become effective immediately. I make that motion.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions?
Did the 500 from the last donation go into that 1150, or is that in addition to?
No, that's a $200 donation, a $450, and the $500.
Okay.
It's all
And the
three of them.
500. Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Now, we have several easements, emergency access, public access for Artisan Park. Has everybody had a chance to look at them? And then there's also a stormwater management one. Oops.
I've had a chance to look at the Artisan Park one, quickly glanced at the stormwater management. Denise, I thought you did a good job giving us all of the possible pitfalls and, ADA compliance and all of the...
What?
Can you just speak into the mic?
I'm sorry. I thought Denise did a great job doing all of the analysis of, ADA compliance, making sure that we got all of the detail that we needed to finalize the final agreement on that. In my opinion, I thought it looked like it was ready to go, given the extra detail.
Which one?
On the Artisan Park.
Okay, are we ready to go on that one?
There it is.
Okay, 48. This is resolution 9.
Yeah.
Resolution approving form of public access easement and agreement for Artisan Park Overlook and authorizing town supervisor to execute said easement and agreement subject to town attorney's approval of exhibits and insertion of necessary information. Whereas Silo Ridge Ventures Property, A LLC, is the owner of 670 plus or minus acres of real property located in the town of Amenia. Whereas Silo intends to develop the Silo property as a mixed-use resort community containing, among other things, condominiums, single-family homes, townhomes, an 18-hole golf course, a clubhouse lodge, a winery-themed restaurant, water and wastewater plants, a public open space, called Artisan Park Overlook, other recreational and open space amenities and related improvements, which resort community is to be known as the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas in 2013, Silo applied to the Town of Amenia Planning Board for, among other things, one, an amended special permit, master development plan approval for the project pursuant to Section 121-8C3 of the Town of Amenia Zoning Code, 2 special permit approvals for the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and wastewater pursuant to Section 121-10B of the Zoning Code. 3, site plan approval of the first phase of the project, including the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and wastewater treatment plant to be located at the HVLC property. 4, preliminary subdivision approval and lot line adjustment to incorporate a portion of the HVLC property into the project site pursuant to Chapter 105 of the Town Code. 5, special permit approval for storage at the golf maintenance facility of more than 500 pounds of fertilizers, pesticides/herbicides pursuant to Section 121-15E1 of the Zoning Code, and 6, certain waivers and supplementary approvals under the Zoning Code and Subdivision Code Whereas on March 25, 2014, the Planning Board circulated a full environmental assessment form, EAF, for the project to all involved agencies, including the Town Board of the Town of Amenia. On May 15, 2014, the Planning Board designated itself lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act for review of the applications for the project. Whereas as part of the application, Silo submitted an addendum to the EAF containing numerous detailed and thorough plans, reports, studies, and other documents evaluating the project's potential impacts on environmental and other resources. Whereas on August 21, 2014, the Planning Board determined the application complete for purposes of public review, and on September 4, 2014, September 18, 2014, and May 5, 2015, the Planning Board held duly noticed public hearings on the applications and supplemental secret material. Whereas the Planning Board, with the assistance of the ecological, planning, engineering, visual, and legal consultants, thoroughly reviewed the EAF, the applications, and revised supplemental secret materials to identify the relevant areas of environmental concern and thoroughly analyze the identified areas of environmental concerns to determine if the project may have a significant adverse impact on the environment. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board adopted Resolution Number 8, 2015, entitled Resolution Adopting an Amended and Restated Finding Statement under SECRET for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board also adopted the following resolutions, among others, in connection with the project. Resolution Number 9 of 2015, titled Resolution Approving the Amended Special Permit an amended master development plan for the Silo Ridge Field Club. 2, Resolution Number 11, titled Resolution Approving Lot Line Adjustment and Preliminary Subdivision Plat for the Silo Ridge Field Club. 3, Resolution Number 12 of 2015, titled Resolution Approving Site Plans for Phase 1 of the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Amenia is an involved agency for the project under SECRET because the board has jurisdiction by law to approve certain aspects of the project, including, among other things, the formation of Transportation Corporation, execution of a public access easement, an agreement for Artisan Park Overlook, and the approval of various project bonds and financial guarantees. Whereas 6 NY Section 61711C provides that no involved agency may make a decision to approve an action until the agency has made a written finding statement under SECRET. Whereas on November 19, 2015, after careful review of the amended SECRET findings prepared by the Planning Board, the Town Board adopted Resolution Number 44 of 2015 adopting the SECRET finding statement for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas Silo Ridge Ventures, A LLC, and the Town Board are desirous of proceeding with the execution of a public access easement, an agreement for the Artisans Park Overlook to create an overlook to allow the general public to enjoy the scenic views from Delaverne Hill. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board hereby approves the form of the public access easement, an agreement for the Artisans Park Overlook as attached to this resolution, and hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute said public access easement and agreement, both of such approvals subject to the town attorney's approval of all necessary exhibits thereto, and the insertion of all necessary information which is currently not inserted therein. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
I'll note that most of the surfaces look like they're permeable, so that was exciting. Only one handicap space is paved. So gravel and stone walkway, that sounds good.
Okay, how are we with the emergency access easement?
I think we just got this, unless I'm
Yeah, we did.
wrong. I have not had a chance to even...
Okay, what about the stormwater management? Do you wanna-
Stormwater, I quickly looked at. This we also got recently, today or...
Yeah. Do you need time to look at it, or?
Emergency access.
I had a chance to look at this. I can't say that I perfectly understood all of the ins and outs of why they need the easement and the town's role in this. Is
For
there a
which
way of
one?
quickly summarizing what this means?
So the purposes of some of these easements, like the emergency access, as well as the stormwater, is essentially to the extent that the owner of the property, the HOA or the developer, fails to maintain, for example, the stormwater to the standards we need, the town has the right to go in and make those changes and then have the ability to charge the developer or the owner of the property. And then with the emergency access is essentially the same way, having the ability for emergency services or the town of Amenia to access the property in certain situations.
So this would be like for first responders?
Correct.
Denise, have you had a chance to review that?
You're looking at the stormwater one now?
Yeah, stormwater and emergency access.
Yes, I've reviewed both of them. I did send my comments and requests for changes to both Dave Everett and to Peter Weiss. I got responses from both of them. I have them with me. It's just the last one that Dave didn't respond to because he's probably on the road. I know he had a meeting in Orange County. But I know Peter Weiss responded. He was okay. It was very minor changes. I think that was the stormwater one. So Silo's attorney was fine. I
With
know
which
they were-
one, the stormwater? With the stormwater one?
Yeah. I mean, if you give me a minute, I can tell you exactly where to keep it.
I remember it was like a one-line,
Yeah, it
very
was- it
simple,
was,
simple change that you asked for and they granted.
Yeah, the stormwater one is pretty. Okay, so on the stormwater, paragraph 4, regarding the inspections of the stormwater management system, and I think the last line here, the inspecting engineer shall prepare and submit to the town within 30 days of the inspection, a written annual report of the condition of the stormwater management system, including recommendations for those actions necessary. I changed it from what they had for the continuation of the system, which I thought was a little bit unclear, to the language, to ensure the system will remain fully operational, because that's consistent with paragraph 2, where Silo shall repair and maintain the stormwater management system as needed to ensure that it shall remain fully operational. It seems that that gives you more coverage. The language, I think, that was there was a little bit unclear. And
So was that
paragraph
change
11,
made?
changes in addresses for any of the parties would have to be given by notice in writing. And then there was an acknowledgement just for the third party that was missing. Because there's 3 parties, there's Amenia, there's Silo, and there's HVLC, so I added that acknowledgement, which you'd have to have for recording.
So everything's been added that needed to be added?
Yeah, the only thing we don't have is, like the other documents, we don't have the legal description attached as yet, but, you're approving the form subject to, completion of, the Schedule A and the insertion of any information that's not currently there.
So we can approve this?
Yeah, I think this
As
one looks
is.
good.
So that's the stormwater one? How does everybody feel about that?
I think as long as it's subject to the attorney's approval of exhibits and insertion of necessary information, I guess that's
We're good?
to her satisfaction.
Yeah, those documents won't be done until the subdivision plat is essentially filed, so.
Okay, 49. Now, basically, the first part of this resolution is what I've already read, twice? Do I need to read it again?
The third paragraph pertains to Harlem Valley landfill because they're a party to this one, so the third paragraph is an addition from the prior one. And I abbreviated somewhat the following paragraph on the applications before the planning board. I mean, I know it makes it long to read these resolutions,
Well,
but
that's okay, let's just get them done. I think we don't want to go. Resolution 49, resolution approving form of stormwater management system maintenance and easement agreement for Silo Ridge project and authorizing town supervisor to execute said maintenance and easement subject to town attorney's approval of exhibits and insertion of necessary information. Whereas Silo Ridge Ventures property is the owner of 670 plus minus acres of real property located in the town of Amenia, whereas Silo intends to develop the Silo property as a mixed-use resort community to be known as the Silo Ridge Field Club, whereas the Harlem Valley Landfill Corp. Is the owner of real property located adjacent to the Silo property and identified as parcel number 7066-00-870350 on the Town of Amenia tax map, and HVLC and Silo intend to enter into an easement agreement granting Silo a permanent easement over a portion of the HVLC property to construct and operate a golf maintenance building, wastewater treatment plant, access road, and other improvements related to the project. Whereas in 2013, Silo applied to the Town of Amenia Planning Board for, among other things, 1, an amended special permits master development plan approval for the project, 2, special permit approvals for the golf maintenance facility, golf course
Improvements and subdivision approval. And golf course improvements and wastewater plant.
and wastewater plant, 3, site plan approval for the first phase of the project, 4, preliminary subdivision approval and lot line adjustment to incorporate a portion of the HVLC property into the project site, 5, special permit approval for storage at the golf maintenance facility of more than 500 pounds of fertilizers and pesticides, and 6, certain waivers and supplementary approvals under the zoning code and subdivision code. Whereas on March 25, 2014, the Planning Board circulated a full environmental assessment form, EAF, for the project to all involved agencies, including the Town Board of the Town of Amenia. On May 15, 2014, the Planning Board designated itself as lead agency under State Environmental Quality Review Act for review of the applications of the project. Whereas as part of the application, Silo submitted an addendum to the EAF containing numerous detailed and thorough plans, reports, studies, and other documents evaluating the project's potential impacts on environmental and other resources, collectively the supplemental seeker materials, Whereas on August 21st, 2014, the Planning Board determined the applications complete for purposes of public review, and on September 4th, 2014, September 18th, 2014, May 5th, 2015, the Planning Board held duly noticed public hearings on the applications and supplemental secret materials. Whereas the Planning Board, with the assistance of its ecological, planning, engineering, visual, and legal consultants, thoroughly reviewed the EAF, the applications, and revised supplemental SEQR materials to identify the relevant areas of environmental concern and thoroughly analyze the identified areas of environmental concerns to determine if the project may have a significant adverse impact of the environment. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board adopted Resolution Number 8 of 2015 entitled Resolution Adopting an Amended and Restated Finding Statement under SEQR for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas on July 20, 2015, the Planning Board also adopted the following resolutions, among others, in connection with the project. 1, Resolution Number 9 of 2015 titled Resolution Approving the Amended Special Permit and amended Master Development Plan for the Silo Ridge Field Club. 2, Resolution Number 11 titled Resolution Approving Lot Line Adjustment and Preliminary Subdivision Plat for the Silo Ridge Field Club. And 3, Resolution Number 12 of 2015 titled Resolution Approving Site Plans for Phase 1 of the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas the Planning Board approved the construction and installation of a stormwater management system serving the project and coverage for the project under New York State DEC Speedies special permit for stormwater discharge from construction activities. Whereas the town and Silo desire that the stormwater management system be built and installed in accordance with the approved project documents and all applicable New York State Department of Environmental Conservation regulations, standards, and guidelines for the project, and that the same thereafter be maintained, cleaned, repaired, replaced, and continued in perpetuity in order to ensure optimum performance of the components of the stormwater management system. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Amenia is an involved agency for the project under SEQR, because the board has jurisdiction by law to approve certain aspects of the project, including, among other things, the formation of transportation corporations, the execution of a public access easement, an agreement for Artisans Park Overlook, and the approval of various project bonds and financial guarantees. Whereas 6 NY CRR Section 617.11C provides that no involved agency may make a decision to approve an action that until the agency has made a written finding statement under SEQR. Whereas on November 19, 2015, after careful review of the amended SEQR findings prepared by the Planning Board, the Town Board adopted Resolution Number 44 of 2015 adopting the SEQR finding statement for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas Silo Ridge Ventures Property, A LLC, HVLC, and the Town Board are desirous of proceeding with the execution of a stormwater management system maintenance and easement agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that after due consideration, the Town Board hereby approves the form of the stormwater management system maintenance and easement agreement as attached to this resolution, and hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute said easement, such approval and authorization being subject to the town attorney's approval of all necessary exhibits thereto, and the insertion of all necessary information which is currently not inserted therein. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
We all set with emergency access?
Have you had a chance to look it over, Denise?
Yeah.
I have not had a chance to look this over.
I mean, it's essentially what Mr. Torres said. You know, it grants the town and the emergency providers the right to, you know, go in and have the access to the property. And also if there should be any kind of an obstruction, it would allow the town to go in and remedy that if Silo or its successors did not do that in a timely manner.
Okay.
I assume that's fine. If Denise has had a chance to look it over carefully for anything that would be,
Well, it has the same things in it for her approval of exhibits and insertions.
okay, it's fine.
Okay. Resolution number 50. Resolution approving form of emergency access easement for Silo Ridge project property and authorizing town supervisor to execute said easement, subject to town attorney's approval of exhibits and insertion of necessary information, whereas Silo Ridge Ventures Company, ALLC, is the owner of 670 plus or minus acres of real property located in the town of Amenia, whereas Silo intends to develop the Silo property as a mixed-use resort community to be known as Silo Ridge Field Club, whereas Harlem Valley Landfill Corp. is the owner of real property located adjacent to the Silo property identified as parcel number 7066-00-870350 on the town of Amenia tax map, and HVLC and Silo intend to enter in an easement agreement granting Silo a permanent easement over a portion of the HVLC property to construct and operate a golf maintenance building, wastewater treatment plant, access road, and other improvements related to the project. Whereas in 2013, Silo applied to the town of Amenia Planning Board for, among other things, 1, an amended special permit, special master development plan approval for the project, 2, special permit approvals for the golf maintenance facility, golf course improvements, and wastewater plant, 3, site plan approval for the first phase of the project, 4, preliminary subdivision approval and light line adjustment to incorporate a portion of the HVLC property into the project site, 5, special permit approval for storage at the golf maintenance facility, more than 500 pounds of fertilizers and pesticides, and 6, certain waivers and supplementary approvals under the zoning code and subdivision code. Whereas on March 25, 2014, the planning board circulated a full environmental assessment form for the project to all involved agencies, including the town board of the town of Amenia on May 15, 2014, the planning board designated itself as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act for review of the applications for the project. Whereas as part of the application, Silo submitted an addendum to the EAF containing numerous detailed and thorough plans, reports, studies, and other documents evaluating the project's potential impacts on environmental and other resources, collectively the supplemental secret materials. Whereas on August 21st, 2014, the Planning Board determined the applications complete for purposes of public review. On September 4, 2014, September 18, 2014, and May 5, 2015, the Planning Board held duly noticed public hearings on the applications and supplemental secret materials, whereas the Planning Board, with the assistance of its ecological, planning, engineering, visual, and legal consultants, thoroughly reviewed the EAF, the applications, and revised supplemental secret materials to identify the relevant areas of environmental concern and thoroughly analyze the identified areas of environmental concerns to determine if the project may have a significant adverse impact on the environment. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board adopted Resolution Number 8, 2015, entitled Resolution Adopting an Amended and Restated Finding Statement under Seeker for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas on July 29, 2015, the Planning Board also adopted the following resolutions, among others, in connection with the project. Resolution Number 1, Resolution Number 9 of 2015, titled Resolution Approving the Amended Special Permit and Amended Master Development Plan for the Silo Ridge Field Club. 2, Resolution Number 11, titled Resolution Approving Lot Line Adjustment and Preliminary Subdivision Plat for the Silo Ridge Field Club. And 3, Resolution Number 12 of 2015, titled Resolution Approving Site Plans for Phase 1 of the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Amenia is an involved agency for the project under SECRA because the board has jurisdiction by law to approve certain aspects of the project, including, among other things, the formation of transportation corporations, the execution of a public access easement, an agreement for Artisan Park Overlook, and the approval of various project bonds and financial guarantees. Whereas 6 NY CRR Section 617.11c provides that no involved agency may make a decision to approve an action until the agency has made a written finding statement under seeker, whereas on November 19, 2015, after careful review of the amended seeker findings prepared by the Planning Board, the Town Board adopted Resolution Number 44 of 2015, adopting the seeker finding statement for the Silo Ridge Field Club. Whereas Silo Ridge Ventures Company, a LLC, HVLC, and the Town Board are desirous of proceeding with the execution of an emergency access easement to facilitate access to the silo property and the HVLC property by the town and other emergency service providers, and to fulfill requirements of the July 2015 approvals granted by the Town of Amenia Planning Board. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board hereby approves the form of the emergency access easement as attached to this resolution, and hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute said easement, such approval and authorization being subject to the town attorney's approval of all necessary exhibits thereto, and the assertion of all necessary information which is currently not inserted therein. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion. So,
Second it.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
yes.
Councilman Perotti?
Yes.
Okay, do we have any other matters? Public comment?
Hi, Gabe Napoleon, Millerton News. You all know me. I've waited 4.5 hours to tell you this. Tonight will be my last board meeting covering Amenia for the Millerton News.
It's terrible. But I hope you have a good new position that you're...
It's definitely bittersweet. I am looking forward to the future as the Mahawi Performing Arts Center's marketing assistant. But I have had a great time covering your town for the Millerton News. It's been a crazy ride. You have a great town. Yeah, lots of meetings, lots of events, out on the streets, meeting your people. And it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for this opportunity to learn about Amenia, and I wish you good luck.
Good luck.
We are going to miss you terribly. You've been a fixture in our front row. So, nice, happy face there. We're very happy with your coverage. It's going to be very, very hard to replace you, I'm sure.
Big shoes to fill.
Good luck to the next guy.
And good luck to the Mahawi. That sounds fabulous. How fun.
Yeah.
It's too late for him to use last story.
Are there any town board comments? I would like to hold a brief executive session, which is probably the last thing you want to hear, but we really have something we really need to talk about, and the town clerk is excused.
Thank you.
I'm not like personnel.
Actually, it is the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation are related to appointment, promotion, demotion, discipline, or renewal. I guess that would be the... Oh, actually, no, it isn't. It's number 5. Matters relating to collective negotiations under the Taylor Law is more likely. I didn't know we had that one there.
Make a motion that we go into executive session
Second.
to discuss those matters.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any opposed? I hate to do this to you, but can you guys sign? There's